My psychopath mother-in-law literally said that she's going to take our kid away from us when he's born, saying that she's going to make a false Child Protective Services report just to get our kid away from us. And along with a bunch of other creepy comments, it's honestly put us on edge, and at this point, we don't know what to do. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk? I don't even know how to describe this first story besides what I literally just said. It is without a doubt one of the wildest rides you could possibly expect, so strap in for this one. It is so strange. So please subscribe to Am I the Jerk if you haven't already. That way you can never miss a video and turn on notifications. Let's get started. Okay, so for a bit of backstory. As of February of this year, my wife and I are still newlyweds, but we've also been together since November of 2024. Since we started dating, I got a very good idea of what my now mother-in-law is like. My girlfriend at the time would tell me many stories about how her mother would consistently and constantly violate her privacy. She would tell me how her mother would go through and snoop in her room while she was at school as a girl. The most egregious example I can recall is going through her journal and criticizing her private thoughts. She would also go through all of her messages that she sent on her phone to her friends. Even beyond just violating her privacy, she would fearmonger her by constantly showing her stories about a girl in the local area for either somebody like taking her out or some other horrible story. And I'm sorry I can't give more details on this, but these are stories I've heard about a while ago. And it's her life, and I don't want to be too specific. But just from these stories my wife told me, I know that her mother can be quite the helicopter parent. Moving forward just a little bit, my wife eventually moved into my apartment with me. And trust me, she had the most difficult move of her life moving across the street. Now, as any couple does, we talk about each other's day when I come home from work. And during these talks, my wife would very consistently share very manipulated stories about what her mother had been up to almost every other day. Her typical strategy is to offer to take my wife out to either go like shopping or to go get their nails done or something like that. After she butters her up, she will then ask her to do her homework for her. Now, my poor wife is a pushover, as she is usually like the kind of person who would just do it, but recently she stood up to her and tells her no, she can't do it, as she's doing her own college work. And when my wife refused to do this, her mother nearly left her over an hour away from home in the city, and the only reason she didn't do it was because my wife called her dad to tell him exactly what she was doing. And my god, there are hosts of other examples, but it typically involves treating her to something, and then during or after that, she suggests that she does something for her in exchange. Now, I never see any of this because this always happens when I'm working. Like, I'm not seeing it firsthand, but I know she's not lying because when her mother knows I'm home and wants to come over, she will call and ask permission to come over, and when she does come over, she doesn't overstep, and if anything, she's very pleasant. But when I come home early or my mother-in-law thinks I'm out doing something else, only then is that the time that she comes unannounced and will be doing like dishes when my wife answers the door. And I even hear the way that she kind of begins to talk to her before she sees me and gets really sweet and then shortly leaves after that. Now, all of this is just really crappy behavior, and I've told my wife that since her mom doesn't behave when I'm not around, then she should not open the door for her when I'm not home. But guess what? We've got some great news. As the title implies, as of December last year, my wife and I found out we are expecting our first child. We're expecting a boy and we are super excited. Unfortunately, she's had a difficult time with the pregnancy. I was going to bore you all with the details, but essentially there are some medical issues and our doctor is dropping us because she's on my insurance now, which he doesn't accept. So we're having a really awesome time with that right now. But during some of the visits that she's had to like the ER or labor and delivery, I haven't always been able to like take her since I'm at work, and when she needs to go while I'm at work, she's been able to get her mother to take her. And just as a note to you, reader, we will revisit this later on. So on top of all of the issues, her mom throughout the entire pregnancy has been happy. Now, what does a happy grandparent do? They spoil you, right? So my wife and I have been grateful to have received gifts from her parents, like a crib for the baby and a swing and stuff like that. And now, just revisiting my earlier context, her pattern is to buy things for my wife seemingly generously, only to then swoop in and be like, oh, there's expectations. And trust me, the direction this is going is not what you're expecting. So my mother-in-law's buying stuff and bringing it to our apartment while I'm at work, and my wife and her will be talking, and my mother-in-law will make a comment about the baby, but she will refer to our son as my baby. Now, my wife instantly caught on to this and said, no, not your baby, this is my baby. So my mother-in-law will backtrack and say, right, our baby. My mother-in-law will also make another comment about the baby being hers, and my wife corrects her again, except this time my mother-in-law says, well, I buy the baby stuff, which kind of makes it now my baby. Now, oh, I'm sorry, I think I missed a detail here. Did I mention that her mother works at the freaking hospital? Yeah, she works there. Her mother, who as a child would go through her journal and phone, who is a helicopter parent. She also, throughout my wife's life, has looked at her medical records since she works at the hospital, even after she turned 18. This woman, who's like the eye of Sauron hovers above every detail in my wife's pregnancy notes. She works where my wife will literally give birth and has even made comments on influencing the care she receives when the time comes that she gives birth. And now, above all of this, she's made comments alluding to our child being her baby, which leads us all to right now in present day. Because guess what? This happens again. She makes a comment about our kid being hers. She then responded by saying, it would be a shame if one day you're sleeping and the baby's crying. He probably missed a meal and he's super hungry. Child Protective Services could get involved and then it would be my baby. And this activated Mama Bear and my wife, who promptly kicked her out. And now today I've heard this very concerning story on top of every other concerning behavior my mother-in-law exhibits. And holy crap, we are worried. And now we will viciously fight to protect our child. But since this isn't my mom, I don't know what we should do. Honestly, it's hard to even be concerned about this when we are dealing with even getting a doctor again, seeing as we don't have one 28 weeks out and we're honestly at high risk at this point. So much is going on, and I don't know if my wife and I are just both paranoid of her and maybe we're like seeing into things. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, I never thought I would ever be sharing something like this on the internet, but here we are because like I'm exhausted and I just don't know what to do. Okay, holy crap, dude, you've got like a mother-in-law from the depths of Hades. And my God, she's literally trying to be like, oh, pretty soon if I make a false report, your baby is gonna be my baby. And it's like, no, you're not getting anywhere near my kid. Like, what are we talking about? Like, if I was in your shoes, I would not care if I'm just like, oh, I'm just the husband or something like that. I would absolutely step in and be like, you're gonna stay away from my family, you're gonna stay away from my wife, and more importantly, you're gonna stay away from my kid. Because if you don't, I'm gonna take legal action, dude. And by the way, you should take these kind of comments very seriously. Like, we're talking report her to the hospital and report her to the authorities. Like, I would not take this lightly in the slightest. I would take it very seriously and be like, oh, she said she's gonna make a false police report all because my baby's crying. Like, she's gonna be like, oh yeah, Child Protective Services are gonna take your kid away and then I'm gonna have the baby. Like, no, you're not, lady. You're gonna have like a restraining order and you're gonna be forced to stay away from us. Now, I've also worked in like the medical field, so her accessing medical records and going through it and using it against you guys, like at least where I worked, that is a huge violation of privacy and that is absolutely grounds to be fired. Oh, and yes, there is a digital footprint of people looking at charts. You can't just use that and then like, I don't know, try to use it against somebody and keep notes and tabs on what they're doing. Like, that's highly inappropriate. I don't know if the possibility of you guys like giving birth at a different hospital is on the table, but I would definitely look at that. Like, this is really creepy, dude, like across the board. And this goes way beyond like, I don't know, her being a helicopter parent. Like, you guys are adults. Like, your wife isn't a teenager. The mom literally has to like let go of her grip and walk away, dude. She's married, for God's sakes. Like, leave her alone. So yeah, this whole situation is completely messed up, dude. It is super cursed. And I hope things don't go the way that your mother-in-law's describing, because this literally is insane behavior. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. Today, I dealt with one of the weirdest customers I've ever dealt with in a long time, as she literally refused to understand the fact that we were not having a real service today at our restaurant, but instead it was a training day, and we were offering her free food just to come and like eat with us and have a good time. Because this entire interaction left me scratching my head, as I was so confused, and even to this day, I still am. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a seasonal restaurant 7 months out of the year. It's outside, and we open in the spring and run all the way through the fall. That is, until the weather gets too inconsistent. We just opened for the season, and 2 weeks ago was our mock service and like soft opening, where we basically had like a friends and family day. We sent invitations to regulars and industry and vendors, and we were even allowed to invite our own friends and family over to come along. But on top of that, when we had space, we would also take walk-ins off the street. Now, this entire day is treated like a training service, and everything is comped by corporate. So when we take a walk-in, we detail them on what's happening. And it always starts the same with us greeting them and kind of like taking them to a table appropriate for the size of their party. And then we'll say, hey, just so you're aware, we're not really open yet, but you're welcome to join us for this training shift and help us iron out the wrinkles. Everything you order today will be on the house, and we appreciate your feedback to help us improve. Which honestly is like a very typical corporate script that we had to read through. Well, a woman comes in and she's looking for happy hour. I tell her we do have a happy hour, but we're not offering it today, all because of the above reasons that I just explained. She then looks at me and says, oh, well, I'm really just looking for happy hour. So I say to to her, well, again, we don't have happy hour because this is a mock service, but everything today is free, including alcoholic beverages. Our full menu is available for free, like you don't have to pay for anything. They then look at me and say, oh, I don't drink, I'm just looking for happy hour. And at this point, I'm completely unsure how to even help this person. She doesn't even know what's on our happy hour. She's never been here before, like she literally said so. So I know she's not looking for an exclusive item, of which there's only like 2. She just wants happy hour. I say to her, oh, well, aside from alcoholic beverages, most of our happy hour snacks are things on the regular menu, just at a discounted rate. Those are also available today, but you can have them for free. Well, irritatingly enough, she says, no thank you, I really just want happy hour. And she actually waved in a friendly way and walked away. This woman was never mad. She was never rude. She was never entitled. In fact, she was friendly and polite the entire time. But I honestly just have no idea what she wanted or why everything being free was not it. Because seriously, that's not how it works, and honestly, I just don't understand. Okay, dude, if I walked up to a restaurant and they said, hey, everything's for free and you can basically come in here and not have to worry about paying for anything, I would be like, oh, cool, this is where we're eating tonight. I don't care what it is. We're gonna scarf it down and have a great time. So yeah, this is like super bizarre. I would be so confused as like a server or someone seating people to find someone who didn't want to take, oh, I don't know, free food. Like, what are we doing right now? That's so weird. Because all she had to do was say yes, and then suddenly she can have like a great night of doing whatever she wants. But instead, she decided to be caught in a loop, and honestly, I'm right there with the original poster. I don't understand this, and I have no idea why she didn't go along with this. Am I the jerk for telling my husband's ex-wife to keep her personal items at her house, as she has consistently sent over baskets of clothing of her kid that also just so happen to have her panties in the mix? And it's honestly really annoying because her reaction was completely over the top and unnecessary, and has put me and my husband in a really weird situation. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I have been married for 3 years, and for reference, he was previously married to his ex, and he found out that she cheated the whole marriage, and they ended up getting divorced. Well, they now share joint custody of their son, and 4 weeks ago, she sent her kid over with a basket of clothing, and I was picking out clothes for him to wear to school one morning, and I found 3 panties in the basket. Now, immediately, my thought was, okay, laundry probably got mixed up. It's honestly not a big deal. I told my husband about it, and he said if it happened again, then we would say something, because he doesn't want her stuff at our house. Well, 2 weeks later, the kid comes over to our house for the week with a brand new basket, and I'm picking out his clothes for school, and guess what? I find 2 more things of panties and lingerie. I then immediately told my husband, and we agreed that we would absolutely say something. Now, anytime my husband brings up anything, this lady always gets defensive. So I just told him, hey, I'll take care of it. I'll send her a text message. All I said to her was, hey there, the kid was sent home with his basket, and on top are a lot of your personal items. This has happened twice before, and we both just want to ask you that from now on, please just be more careful with what gets sent with them. Thank you. I didn't hear back from her all day, so I assume she got embarrassed and didn't want to say anything back, which was perfect for me, because there's no conflict, so I don't have to deal with her. But later that night, she sends 2 text messages back to back saying, don't ever text me again. You are not and never will be my kid's mom. Now, I didn't say anything back to her because I've never claimed to be her son's mom, and I've always said that I'm just an extra support system and I'm not here to steal anybody's role. Well, she proceeded to call my husband, screaming, saying that she's going to take him to court and that I threatened her and was trying to tell her how to be a parent. Mind you, my husband saw the text messages of what I said. There was no threatening done whatsoever, so honestly, it's really insane. But with all that in mind, am I really the jerk for sending a text message to this lady? Because now I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, I think we can all raise our hands and say, yep, we all agree this is probably why this guy divorced her. Holy crap, what a loser. This lady lost her mind and said, oh my god, don't ever text me again. You're telling me how to be a mother, how dare you? And it's like, no lady, we just don't want to see your panties in his basket. Like, what a weirdo, dude. Keep your underwear to yourself. This is not the original poster telling them like how to be a better parent or saying like, oh, I'm gonna take your son from you. Like, bro, just keep your laundry separated from the kid who's coming over for the week. This is literally not that hard. So yeah, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Obviously, you didn't do anything wrong. And again, the way she reacted is probably exactly the reason why the original poster either A, shouldn't have been with her in the first place, and B, is probably a contributing factor to getting a divorce, aside from her cheating on him for the entirety of the marriage. My boyfriend literally started crying when I showed him my savings account because he's someone who's always struggled to keep a budget and even save money in the first place. And at this point, I'm honestly feeling really bad for being this open about this, and at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Here's basically what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend of 7 years and I are in the process of moving into our own apartment. We've been living with another couple in a house for like the past 5 years, which has allowed me to save a fair amount of money. I always have pretty much saved my money ever since I was a kid, and I would get birthday money as well as during the pandemic. I've tried so many times to help my boyfriend save money and budget, but he has ADHD and he's unable to keep it up for a long period of time. Well, tonight I made the mistake of showing him my savings account because he immediately shut down and got really upset. He actually started crying at the restaurant during our dinner. It made me feel awkward, and honestly it made me feel bad. And I know he is mostly upset with himself for not managing his money better, but it really feels a little personal. He kept asking, well, how did you save that much? And he would say, I just don't get how you have so much and I have so little, almost acting as if I've done something wrong. For reference, we split utilities, we split rent and food, and most expensive across the board 50%, and we make around the same amount. I used to make less than him, but I have consistently gotten little raises the past few years, while his wages have become pretty stagnant. It is making me feel weird and kind of guilty, even though it's objectively a good thing that at least one of us has an emergency fund. I guess I'm just wondering what you would do in this situation and how I can even begin to help him. I really regret being open with him about my financial situation, which really sucks because we've been dating since I was 21, and I've known him since I was like 19. I'm a very detail-oriented person, and he is not. Since we're moving into a place with just the two of us, and it will be more expensive, I'm worried that this strain will only get worse, and at this point I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, it is kind of like a red flag for him to be like, wait, how do you have so much money when he himself is not doing well? But like, I think you can get past this. I think it's totally within like the scope of possibility for you two to be like, okay, this is a new beginning. Let's start over with the whole money thing and try again, even if we don't get it right the first time. Because seriously, like it is possible to budget and make sure you have money set aside. It just takes time and effort and a lot of planning, but it is completely within the scope of possibility where this could become like a really good habit and you're able to do pretty much whatever you want. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about this. Like, I think him crying about this is more like him mourning the fact that he can't do this, as opposed to him being like pissed off at you. Like, I don't read that as such, and I don't think you should either. Would I be the jerk if I put a no-fly order on my ex, all because he is 6 months behind on his child support payments? Here's what's currently going on. Okay, for the sake of the story, we'll call my ex Sam, and he and I split up 7 years ago. There was some mistreatment, and it was mainly just financial and coercive control. And just to paint a picture of like what I was dealing with, I was the only working parent when we had children, and also the primary carer. Meanwhile, Sam was only responsible for dropping the children to daycare and school. I carried the mental load with all the grocery deliveries, meal planning, paying bills, etc., and had a weekly house cleaner because I didn't have the time to do all of that on top of working and spending time with the kids. Well, when we got divorced, Sam had to get a job and was earning around the same as me. But in the last 7 years alone, Sam has averaged maybe 8% of the time with the children, and at one stage only seeing them 13 times in 2 years by choice. In that time, I maintained the children's relationship with the extended family, and I travel with them to Sam's home country to see his grandparents and enjoy their culture. I've seen the extended family more often and more recently than Sam, both with the children and without, as I also lived in his country with him for a few years and have my own friends and reasons to visit, so I would take the kids to see their family for a month most years. Well, fast forward to present day, and I now have the children 100% of the time. Sam has quit work, he isn't paying any child support, and now he's suing for 50% custody. Currently, the child support debt is from 6 months of non-payment at the new rate. I technically don't need the child support, but we are living frugally, and school fees will have to come from my mortgage redraw without it. I could apply for a no-travel order, which would mean that Sam has to repay the debt, or Sam's wealthy parents would, as they are currently supporting Sam, all before leaving the country. However, because Sam's family are overseas, and Sam's grandparents are around like 100 years old, that would mean missing their funeral and the associated necessary cultural elements. I would take the children over and have funds aside for last-minute flights and pretty much anything I might need. So honestly, with all things considered, would I really be the jerk if I applied for the travel ban, knowing that Sam might miss a funeral? Because right now I really just don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, it really seems like Sam just doesn't care about the kids at all. Like seriously, he doesn't have a job, he's never seeing them, and I bet he probably only wants them in custody because it'll be cheaper on his taxes or something like that. Like I can see Sam, based on what you're describing, doing something like that, and that sounds obnoxious, like that's really annoying. Meanwhile, you're bearing the full weight of like taking care of these kids all the time. You're coordinating everything while also still visiting family. You're still doing the things that kids need in their lives. And that's honestly not fair for for you at all. But I will say, with all that in mind, if you do decide to go through and be like, oh, I'm going to set up a travel ban on you, then you need to realize that there's going to be consequences. Like, this guy's going to be pissed off. There's going to be a lot of drama. It's going to be one of those situations where he is not going to take this sitting down. And yes, it will be a very definitive like line in the sand of like, hey, you need to take care of the kids. You need to do more and actually be present in their life, you know, by like paying child support and all that other stuff. But also, this really will stir the pot, dude. This is going to be a situation where like, yeah, he's going to say something. He's probably going to bring this up with family. He's probably going to like, I don't know, make the whole custody battle even worse. So I think if you want to light that firecracker, you just have to be ready for the consequences. Even if it means that, yeah, he starts paying for child support and he can't fly any longer. Which in my opinion, like if I was in your shoes, I would probably go ahead and do it. Especially if I've been doing all of the childcare for years and this guy's not doing anything. Especially if this guy owed 6 months of child support payments. Like, dude, you got to get on that. There's no excuse for that. You got to be better for your kids. So no, I don't think you would be the jerk by doing this, but I think you just need to know that it's probably going to kickstart a lot of drama in your life. And I guess if you're ready for it, then go for it, because that is probably exactly what's going to happen. My idiotic coworker humiliates herself in front of the entire company by pretending to be drunk after drinking the punch that I made. But after I told her in front of everyone that I made non-alcoholic punch, she stormed off in a fit of rage, as she was furious with me that I had somehow embarrassed her in front of the entire company. And now I'm honestly wondering if I'm at fault here for not explaining that my punch that I made for this party was non-alcoholic, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I recently attended a potluck-style work party, and I brought some punch with me, which has since caused a problem between myself and another coworker. And for the sake of the story, we'll call this coworker Sandy. Last week, my boss hosted a party at his house to celebrate the end of the busy season, as well as a job well done. All of my coworkers and their spouses were invited, and we decided it would work well to do a potluck to offset the cost of feeding everybody. For reference, there were about 35 people, since not everyone who came brought a spouse or a significant other. I volunteered to make a punch that I brought to previous work events that everyone said they enjoyed, as well as some other fruit to go with it. This was a casual party with alcohol present, but since I have some coworkers who don't drink, I didn't add any alcohol to this punch, and I figured that if people really wanted some, they would just add it themselves. Well, fast forward a couple of hours, and Sandy, who is a 42-year-old woman, is getting even louder and more dramatic than normal, and she's now stumbling around the party. I didn't think much of it, and I figured she brought her own drinks, or was adding some of the host's alcohol that was put out into something else. She then suddenly fell off the chair she was sitting on and made a big show of it, saying that it's because she was so drunk. And then she asked me in front of all of our coworkers what was in the punch that I made. Now at this point, I was very confused, and so I told her what was in it. It was a mix of ginger ale, 7-Up, orange juice, and a can of juice concentrate. She then wanted to know what alcohol I put in it because she's been drinking it all night and she is really feeling it. But I told her I didn't put any alcohol in it, and I asked if maybe somebody else had spiked the punch bowl, but nobody said they added anything. And one of my coworkers who doesn't drink even said that they had also been drinking the punch all evening and was still completely sober. I also would like to clarify that I understand how context can matter. Like if everyone else was really drunk, then that can make even a sober person feel like they're loaded, but that definitely was not the vibe. Sandy was literally the only person acting drunk. She then got really quiet and went off by herself to the bathroom. The rest of my coworkers and I exchanged some awkward glances and tried to laugh it off. She then left shortly afterwards, and I received an angry text message from her about how I shouldn't have embarrassed her like that, and that now she looks like an idiot in front of our bosses and the rest of our coworkers. She's been hostile to me at work ever since and is basically refusing to talk to me. I didn't think I did anything wrong, and most of my coworkers agree with me, but some say that I should have just let her go on thinking that the punch was alcoholic to try and save her from the embarrassment, and I'm left wondering if I'm the one in the wrong. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, first and foremost, any coworker who's trying to tell you that you should have lied to help her save face is a complete moron and absolutely wrong, because that is not the play here. You should not have to lie all because your coworker wanted to pretend to be drunk. So to that effect, absolutely you should have not done that, and no, you're not the jerk. Sandy made the conscious choice, an adult woman, to walk in there and be like, oh man, I am so drunk right now. I'm stumbling all over the place. Look how drunk I am. Like she really hammed it up like she's on stage and this is some kind of performance. And the fact that anybody would think that you have to play along with that stupid, idiotic behavior, because seriously, how on earth is this your fault? You literally just told the truth about what's really in that drink. You didn't embarrass her and you didn't do anything to make her look bad. She's the one that made herself look bad. Like, are you kidding me right now? So it is so so silly to me that she's trying to be like, wow, you embarrassed me in front of everybody. When it's like, no, I didn't. I didn't do anything to you. You embarrassed yourself by the way you acted. Because of course she wasn't actually drunk, she just wanted attention. And guess what? She definitely got that attention, but not in the way that she wanted. So no, you're not the jerk here. You literally didn't do anything wrong. You literally just wanted to show up to a party, but instead, Sandy decided to drag you into her weird masquerade as if it's somehow your responsibility to like manage her feelings. So no, you're not the jerk, you didn't do anything wrong, and I think that Sandy's an idiot for acting the way that she did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for wanting to cut off communication with my adoptive mom after she started treating me differently due to my child? Here's what happened. Okay, so my biological parents disowned me as a teenager because I left the religion I was raised in, and I haven't seen them since I was 17 years old. I'm now almost 30, and in 2021, a couple I've known since I was a teenager legally adopted me. I worked with my adopted mom, who I will call Erin, since I worked with her at my first job when I was 14 years old. I called her my spare mom over the years since I didn't have a real mom anymore. Erin and her husband, who we will call Jacob, have always been good to me and helped me out here and there, particularly financially. The biggest thing I would say they've done for me is that they've bought me a new used car in 2020 for about $3,000, which is right when my old vehicle died on me. Now, I offered to pay them back, but they wouldn't let me, and I'm definitely very grateful for their help. Now, part of the reason the adoption happened was that I had recently told them I was scared of something happening to me and my biological parents being contacted to make decisions for me. With their religion, I knew that the biological parents would, for instance, let me pass away if I needed a blood transfusion because their religion forbids it. When my adoptive parents presented me with the idea of adult adoption, that was a big part of why I accepted it. That, and to be honest, I've always been lonely and wished that I had a family, and I wanted to believe that they were my family now. I wouldn't say we've ever been super close. We live in the same town, and I have usually seen them 1 to 3 times a year at the most for reference. And I didn't really expect the legal adoption to change our relationship, but since they adopted me, a lot has changed, both with me and my personal life and my relationship with Erin. I got married and had a baby, and when I got engaged, Erin was one of the first people I sent a message to tell, but when she got it, she just read it and ignored it for days. Eventually, she told me that she's not ignoring me and that she just has a lot going on, and then it was never brought up ever again. My feelings were hurt because I thought that she'd at least expect some happiness for me or something like that, but I got literally no reply ever, and then she moved on to chatting about other things. Down the road, my now husband and I eloped. If she had made me feel like she cared, I probably would have invited Erin, but as it was, she found out afterwards like everybody else, and she seemed offended that she hadn't been invited. Well, not long after I was married, I finally got pregnant. And again, Erin was one of the first people that I told. Her response to this news was to say, well, I'll probably be happy for you once I get used to the idea. And again, I was very hurt, and I felt rejected and unsupported. As my pregnancy progressed, Erin warmed up to the idea to the point where she was pressuring me to bring that belly around more and making rude comments about how I didn't come over enough. And let me also just add that she never actually invited me over or anything, but instead she just complained. When I had my baby, she was the only person who insisted on being at the hospital to meet my baby after my emergency C-section when I didn't want any visitors. She has since then only seen my baby a couple of times. My husband and I both work full-time, and we alternate days, so one of us is always home with the baby, and whoever is home doesn't have the car. And I'm also dealing with some newly diagnosed health issues, so I have very little energy or free time. Erin has continued to complain that she doesn't see my baby enough, but again, never actually invites me over or asks to come over or actually plan anything. She has even taken my baby out of my arms when I've said no to her holding her and jokingly refused to give her back. She seems very interested in having a relationship with my baby, but at this point, I barely have a relationship with Erin, and I don't feel like making an effort to ensure that they have a relationship with how she's been to me the last few years. She's also told me some weird things that made me certain that I will never leave her alone with my baby. For example, when she was watching her friend's baby and it was fussy, she put it on her non-lactating chest to try and calm it down. And she told me this like it was a totally normal thing to do, and I was shocked to even say anything about it. I had plans to see Erin and Jacob around the holidays, but Erin sent me a message saying, I can't wait to see your baby. And I said, and me too, right? She responded by saying, well, of course, because you carry the baby in. And this was the last straw for me, and I finally went off on a little rant. And I told Erin how I feel about a lot of things that she's done and said. Her response was to try and call me 12 times in a row and leave me guilt-tripping voicemails about how she she was just gonna sit in the public and cry. She did apologize, but never offered any explanation for the way she's responded when I've tried to share my happy news with her. I got her to agree to give me some space, but she does keep texting me for pictures of my daughter. I'm at a point where I don't feel like having a relationship with Erin at all, but I feel a strong sense of obligation to keep her in my life because of everything they've done for me in the past. I don't enjoy her company, and I haven't in several years. And this is to the point that I've made up excuses to leave early or just avoid her altogether. She's very frustrating to me to talk to, and it feels like I'm always just talked over, and the conversation gets turned to being about Erin. She tends to be very negative too, and mostly does a lot of complaining when we talk, and I find her mentally taxing to be around. Being around her stresses me out, and I hate that since I had a baby, she feels like I'm obligated to see her more and all this other stuff. There is a lot more that's happened and been said between us that I can put there, but essentially, I want to know how to end this relationship with her, or if I'm a jerk for wanting to do that. I would be more than happy to never see her again. She's never felt like family to me. Calling her mom has always felt extremely uncomfortable, and I feel sometimes like she only cares about my baby. Also, she has 2 biological adult children of her own, so it's not like she never had any baby time. I would love to get some advice on ways to tactfully tell her I don't want her in my life anymore, because I typically avoid confrontation, and I am a bit of a people pleaser, so hurting her feelings and standing my ground is a scary idea to me. What should I do? Yeah, your adoptive mom is absolutely being toxic. You mean to tell me that she's like completely neglectful of all these things that have happened in your life, but the second there's a child involved, she's suddenly like, oh, let me see the baby. I want to be around the baby. Let me take care of her. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? The fact that you try to like breastfeed another baby that isn't yours, in my opinion, is the biggest red flag you have to look out for. Like that alone is the biggest mark of you saying, hey, you're never gonna see my child. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would just slowly start to fade into the background. That's my favorite thing to do with someone who is absolutely toxic and has no place in my life anymore. And from the sounds of it, it kind of seems like Erin fits the bill. So hopefully this all works out for you, because the way she's acting is incredibly weird. My parents won't let me go to a concert that I was really excited about, and they've even gone as far as trying to insinuate that they would take away my tuition in the past if I ever did things that they didn't like. So now I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm an 18-year-old female and I'm on university break. Last May, I decided to buy tickets with my friends to go to a concert to see an artist co-headlining with another artist that I've liked since I was 14 years old or so. I'm going with friends, and one of them is someone I haven't seen in a while because she goes to school 3 hours away, so this was really important to me. I told my dad last week of my plans, and he didn't really react much and just said okay, but then I told my mom. Well, my mom started yelling at me and told me that because we're Christians, I shouldn't go see a non-Christian artist. In June though, I went to a non-Christian concert with my other friends, and even then they begrudgingly accepted, and my mom told me that it didn't add anything in my life and that concerts had no benefits. My mom villainized and accused me of being so obsessed with music and concerts and made me feel bad for wanting to do so. But I love music, I love playing it, and I even want to work in the music industry when I'm older. I'm doing some internships for it right now. I manage an artist and he's having his first show soon. She called me argumentative and told me that I acted like I knew everything and always combated people when they tried to tell me the right thing. My mom is also concerned about concert safety and says that people who go to concerts do all kinds of substances, they do some weird things and indulge in bad behaviors. Now there is security at the venue, and I'm going to be with my friends at all times, and I'm either getting a ride there from trusted people or taking a rideshare. She then gave me an infographic of different tragedies that happen at concerts, like with Ariana Grande, Travis Scott, and various other stuff. But it's like I'm Canadian, so some of these things just don't happen here. My sister tried to help and moderate a discussion, but my mom ignored us and got really upset. She basically ignored me and told us we were being unreasonable and arguing. She told us that because the both of us are going to visit our older sister in New York later this spring, we are already going to have fun. My mom does not listen to me at all, and she has shut me down completely. My concert is tomorrow and I still want to go, but my parents will not let me. If I do go anyways, they will likely take away my tuition, as they have threatened to do so in the past. So at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think first and foremost, you have every right to go and do whatever you want when it comes to whatever concert there might be going on. Like, you are 18 years old, so you are an adult, so yes, you could go if you want to. But in my opinion, I just don't think it would be worth it. They've threatened to take away your tuition over other things, and the fact that they would even try and do that over a concert of all things, like, that is so crazy, I just can't imagine. So yeah, you could go to this concert anyways and be like, oh, I'm gonna go and there's nothing you can do about it, but based on the way your parents act and how irrational they are, I honestly just don't think it's worth it. So if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would go to that concert because your parents sound incredibly toxic. My entitled friend has an awful attitude, as she is constantly trying to tell me what I should and shouldn't do, while also trying to rule my life entirely. And I'm honestly so exhausted dealing with this that at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm currently in 11th grade and I'm about to enter my 12th grade for further studies. I have this Moroccan Pakistani friend who was raised in the United Kingdom, and we became friends since we were both the odd ones out and the ones who are left from toxic friend groups. She was overall pretty cool. We got to hang out and make jokes that were stupid stuff and stuff like that, and it was pretty fun. Every day was like an adventure to me, and it felt like the best part of my life. However, I'd like to discuss about the cons of having her as a friend, as it concerns and irritates me the most. I don't want to talk to her about this, since she is the type of negative person that complains every time and basically ruins the mood sometimes as well. Anyways, just recently, we were deciding on what subjects to choose for 12th grade. I wanted to pursue dentistry, and I took biology and chemistry already, but she kept on insisting that I must take mechanical maths. And maths is split in two different aspects in the 12th grade, namely statistics and mechanical. I asked her why I've already got the subjects I require, and she told me that she's researched dentistry university requirements and that they want maths as well, and she just kept forcing this reality on me. When she spoke, it was like she was commanding me, as if pressuring me to take mechanical maths as well. I know different universities have different requirements, and that maths is a subject where universities praise someone for doing, and yet the dentistry universities are either too expensive or straight up BS. So I wish to go for another university with biology or chemistry studies within them themselves so that I can then apply for dentistry or other medical field careers. But she simply kept insisting, and I genuinely hated it. It was over and over again. And by the way, it's my future, and she has no privilege to be so rude and so commanding of me to take a stupid subject. Additionally, she kept on trying to hook me up with the thought of getting a tutor. She would say, "Next year I'm getting a tutor and I just don't care. 12th graders need tutors, and if you do not have one, your test will be so hard, and you're gonna have less time for yourself due to constant studying. Once I get one, I will always ask for homework. You should get a tutor as well." She acted like she was the one making my choices, which makes me extremely irritated, and I just don't listen to her on this aspect at all. I know my grades in maths and chemistry are a bit awful at the moment, but I've been trying to improve them all over and over, and I'm not that hopeless to the point that I need a tutor. She also repeats the phrase "I don't care" a lot, which pisses me off since no one is forcing her to say this crap. She acts so stubborn as well. She also is a little bit overdramatic and horribly emotional. Like she had a rage fit over someone touching her book once, and a breakdown from how she can't drop computer science as a subject. I really hope she could change for the better, but I seriously just don't want to listen to her like this anymore. I still like her positive side, yet I will always remember her negative side to prevent becoming someone like this. So truly, is this a friend I should keep around? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think this is not one of those friends that's like good for you or in any way gonna make you a better person. It seems like she's kind of a snob and one of those people who probably talks about other people behind your back, and that sounds obnoxious in my opinion. So in my opinion, this might just be one of those friends that you slowly fade away from because they truly are not gonna help you with your choices in the slightest. Today, I filed a complaint against a coworker, and now I'm wondering if I was unreasonable because at this point, I'm worried that they're gonna lie about me, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a fine dining steakhouse. My job is similar to being a busser, but you do have to do a little bit more than just bus. You grab waters and sodas, you refill them, you grab bread, clear things between courses, box up the to-go orders, and pretty much anything the server does when they aren't around. And there is usually at least 10 server assistants on the night shifts. Well, anyways, yesterday I was supposed to work at 10 o'clock in the morning, go on break probably at around 3 o'clock, and then return at 4 to be first cut for the dinner shift. Before I went in, a coworker who was coming in at 12 and closing the restaurant after a break texted me asking if I would close for him. Now, I knew it would take up my entire day, but I said yes and I got it approved. So I go on break at 2:30 because it was slow in the morning, and then returned at 5:30 for this closing shift. When I get there, two other girls who are service assistants tell me that I'm not closing and that one of them had made the switch with the aforementioned guy who came in at 12. But I told them that I made the switch in the morning. I got it approved and specifically came back an hour and a half late because I made this switch. I even have text message proof, but they dismissed me. And I wasn't about to argue about it, so I just let it go. But the guy I made a switch with said that he never talked to them. When I get cut, I'm told to do side work by these two girls, but I told them that I needed a moment to help servers clean up in an area where their service assistant just left their tables dirty and went home. Not even 5 minutes passes by before they're up in my face yelling at me to do my side work. So I told them it's not my fault the other server left, and that barking orders at me wouldn't make me go any faster. So I left the dirty tables behind, I did my side work, and I clocked out, but complained to a manager before leaving, who took it way more seriously than I expected a restaurant manager to do. She then apologized and said that she would talk to them. Now, part of me only complained about them because I figured they would do it too, so I did it before they could. I have work today and I'm afraid of what they're going to say. They are not above lying, so they could easily say that I called them a jerk or something like that. So seriously, am I in the wrong in this situation? Because right now I am very stressed out and I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, I am so glad you complained to your manager, and I'm so glad that your manager is taking this seriously, because everything they did in this scenario is so wrong. Because first and foremost, you are 100% right. Those two girls absolutely would have complained about you the second they get the chance. They seem like those kind of petty coworkers who are out to ruin everybody else's day, and I guarantee you they would have done the same thing to you if given the opportunity. So the fact that you struck while the iron was hot and said something before they could is crucial in this scenario, because they have no right to talk to you as if they're your manager. Which, by the way, fun fact, they're definitely not. They have no say in what you can and cannot do for work, and they definitely cannot boss you around in any kind of way. So that for me is a huge red flag. And also, for them to act like, you're doing this wrong, when you literally have proof that you're switching in, like that is so annoying. And I think it would be smart to show that message to your manager and be like, look, I've got proof that I switched in, so I don't know what they're talking about. And also absolutely include that conversation you had with the other coworker, where he's basically like, yeah, I never talked to them about this. Like, from the sounds of it, it really seems like they're trying to like steal time from someone else and work the system in some kind of way where they come in and do very little while also getting you to do their job. Like, that's all this kind of screams to me, in my opinion, and that is incredibly weird and so toxic. So no, you didn't do anything wrong. I would sit on business and let nature take its course. You need to show up to work with your head held high and have absolute confidence that this will work out. And if they really do try to lie about your character and like try to make things up, then guess what? That's also not allowed, and in some cases incredibly illegal. Because if these people really want to take that route, then they will very quickly find themselves without a job. My entitled mom despises the fact that I have a service dog, claiming that I don't need it, and even going as far as treating me like garbage the second I get it. And I'm honestly still so confused by this, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I caused my mother, who I lived with at the time, to have a full 3-year-old style tantrum over me getting a service dog. For a little bit of background, I've got a pretty serious visual disability that impacts my mobility. I have no balance, I will walk off stairs and curbs, and basically I used to accidentally hurt myself a lot. For a while, I had been looking at getting a service dog to help me with these issues, as stuff like canes and walkers just didn't do anything. I also secretly hoped that it would help my serious burnout being caused by world events. So after about a year of rejections, my best friend randomly shows up to my house one day, showing me pictures of border collie puppies, and there was this one dog that I just fell in love with. I can't really explain it, but we connected basically instantly, even though I had not met this dog yet. So I tell my buddy that if the puppy was still available, I would take her. I wasn't one to make spontaneous choices like that, but something just clicked. Well, my mother was less than thrilled even at the idea. We were a dog household growing up, but my mother is, well, crazy to put it nicely, and if she gets it in her head that something is bad, she will double down until there's nothing left. So my buddy calls me and tells me the pup is still looking for a home. I then reach out to the service dog organization and I explain the situation, and they explain that it may be possible to train the puppy, but they would need to vet them, check their temperament, and all that jazz. So I passed the numbers along, the trainers met the pup's mom's owner, and I was given a temporary green light. And at this point, I was on cloud 9. Not only would I be getting my own service dog after waiting ages, but for the first time in nearly a year, I actually felt happy enough to get up before 6:00 p.m. So I spent the next couple of days getting everything prepared for when my dog would come home. I got the vet stuff set up, training crate, the food, the toys, the whole 9 yards. And it was here that my mother began getting more and more hostile towards me. It started off pretty petty, like my dryer door randomly getting opened, food that I made for myself getting tossed out, that sort of stuff. But it grew to be more crazy, like I had to replace the dog's leash 3 times as it kept getting cut. But eventually this all came to a head when we went up for the day in the mountains, where we were gonna decorate graves, go eat, and everything else. And I was just a little bit too happy, like a bit over the top with being helpful and making sure everyone had what they needed. And this led to snarky remarks off and on a few days prior to when I was given my dog's pickup date, and I was just living in a different world. My sister who organized this trip and her kiddos were aware, but my mother was not. Anyways, tensions got raised as the day went on, and everyone was excited for the day trip and the new dog addition to the family. Well, at this point, my mother snapped at me. Around the time that we went to eat, I was just getting dunked on left and right about how I didn't need a dog and how my condition that I've had since I was literally an infant wasn't that bad. And for context, I can't see more than a few inches past my face, so I don't know what she's talking about. My sister, in a moment of brilliance, had had enough and told my mom to shove it because I was approved for this assistance dog and was going to pick her up in 2 weeks' time. When she heard this, you could have heard a pin drop. This 50-plus-year-old woman then starts sobbing, screaming, and kicking like a toddler, saying that she didn't want a dog and that it wasn't fair that this was being forced on her, and how she didn't like the dog's breed and wanted a Yorkie and all of this other BS. We got asked to leave the restaurant, and my mom got so mad that she threw her phone down, causing it to shatter, which then led her to the parking lot of this establishment where she was on her knees falling, and I just honestly can't even describe it. The whole kicker to this whole thing, prior to this dog coming into my life, is that my mother had been supportive of the idea, so I'm seriously not even sure where it all came from. She just really did not like my service dog. Even 2 years later, after I had the dog and they were fully trained, it actually led me to moving out, but that's an entirely different story. And now, 5 years past this incident, she's now obsessed with my dog and acts like none of that ever happened. Now, I know it's a bit tame compared to what normally gets posted here, but it's still important to note because this entire situation is incredibly annoying. Oh man, I can't stand people who act like this. They encourage you to do something and then they turn around and be like, wait, but it's not the way that I want it done. How dare you actually do the thing that I encourage you to do in the first place? It's like, lady, what are you complaining about? You literally said to your daughter, hey, you should do this and this would be good for you. And it's like, wouldn't you be happy that your kid has a dog that can help them see properly? Like the original poster can't see anything, what, a few inches past their face? And your mom was to sit there and be like, oh, well, that's just absolute BS. You can't do that. That's not fair. So truly, I'm glad you moved out of there because that entire situation is crazy to me. And I just can't stand the fact that she would actually act like that and then try to turn around and pretend as if nothing happened. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. A group of monstrously toxic shoppers mock a little girl for having a disfigured face. So I decided to step in by giving this little girl a $50 gift card, while also telling her that she's pretty and that she deserves the best things in life. Because this scenario honestly pissed me off, as that little girl definitely did not deserve to be treated that way. Here's what happened. Some years ago, I was shopping at a Target, and I noticed a little girl and her mom receiving all sorts of unwarranted negative attention from other shoppers. People were staring, pointing, gasping, and even snickering and talking loudly about the girl between themselves. The little girl had to have been around 4 years old and suffered from some sort of congenital disfigurements to her face and head. Like half of it was kind of dented in. It was bad and kind of shocking, but my god, she's a little girl. Be better, people. It was obvious that for the girl and her mom, this kind of rude attention was nothing new. The little girl wouldn't look at anyone, but kept her head down and just looked at the merchandise within reach or occasionally at her mom. The mom had no problem defiantly looking anyone in the eye, shoulders being squared up. You can tell she had no problem standing up to a jerk like these shoppers. And you could tell too that they didn't have much money. So anyways, I took in all this while I was shopping, never directly staring, mostly watching it out of the corner of my eye. And I felt such a strong need to counter this BS and do what I can to try and help this little girl feel like every other 4-year-old living her best life, even if it was just for a moment. So I ditched my cart, I ran to the front of the store, and stood in a painfully slow line to buy a $50 gift card, all the while hoping they didn't leave before I located them again. With the gift card in hand, I lucked out and found them in the little girl's clothing section, and they were still suffering from other people's rudeness as they tried to shop. I approached the mom, and when I said, "Excuse me," she looked like she was gonna clock me, expecting me to say something rude or mean. But I tried to show nothing but kindness in my eyes, and I just smiled at her. I then said, "I've had this gift card bouncing around in my purse, and I've always forgotten to use it. Would it be okay if I gave it to your daughter?" Well, this mom was shocked to receive any kindness for once. She then smiled and said, "Sure." Now smiling, I knelt next to the little girl, and while giving her the card, I said, "Pretty girls deserve to buy pretty things." And I said this in my best loving mom voice. She shyly took the card from my hand, and then she turned and raced to her mom excitedly to show her. As I turned to walk away, the mom calls out, "Thank you," and I just waved my hand and I said, "You ladies go have fun." And I then smiled and finished up my shopping, giving every rude jerk in the store the stink eye on my way out. They say the best revenge is a life well lived, and if only for a little while, I'm glad I was able to help that sweet little girl live her best life. Wow, I am blown away that people could be this toxic and awful. Like seriously, what kind of monsters would mock a child as she walks around, all because she looks different than anybody else. Like, that is some serious levels of crazy that I've just never heard of before, especially in today's modern age. Like, just because people look different doesn't mean they're deaf, so you can guarantee that the mom and the kid hear exactly what's going on around them. So honestly, the fact that you stepped up and gave that little girl some kind of hope was probably the best thing you ever could have done, because this treatment she received otherwise was so unbelievably wrong, as she literally did not deserve that even for a second. Am I the jerk for hating on a supposedly wholesome family that I work for, as I truly see them for the hypocrites that they actually are? Because right now I feel like these people are driving me crazy, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work as a waitress at a family-owned cafe, and there's a situation that's been bothering me for a while. There are two people in particular, a woman who is the daughter of the owner and my former manager from years ago, and her husband, who is just kind of the worst person on planet Earth. Almost every single day since I started, the husband calls in the morning to order food to go before he heads out to work. Sometimes he'll come in during the afternoon for a second to go order too, and he doesn't tip and doesn't pay for the food. He gets it for free, while the rest of us waitstaff have to pay half for our meals, and he's never worked there. One day after I made a large to-go order that took a lot of work, he laughed and said that he didn't have the money to tip. After finding $3, he joked and said, "A 300% tip on a $0 meal seems a bit too shabby." His family then laughed, including his sister who works there. It felt really insulting, especially since he didn't pay for the food in the first place, and his to-go order was $40. Recently, he and his wife have been coming in regularly for lunch. For the past 2 weeks, they've been coming in every shift I've worked. They sit down at a table, which in our small cafe with only 6 tables, takes up space that could be used by other well-paying customers, and then they expected us to wait on them. My ex-manager used to handle their orders herself when they came in, but now they expect service like regular customers. They sometimes get up to grab their own things too, which makes it harder for me to know how to handle them. Should I wait on them like regular customers, or should they serve themselves? They've been tipping $5 regardless of the service or the total of their meal, which feels really frustrating considering the effort other waitresses put into serving them. And again, they don't pay anything. Now, they are very religious, which again isn't inherently bad, but the way they preach about being good Christians and good people feels so gross to me, because it seriously does not match their actions. They treat waitstaff poorly, leaving dirty tables, taking up the small number of tables we have for literally such a long time, and taking away potential customers. And yet they act like they're kind, genuine people who can't see how their actions affect us. The wife was a waitress, so she should know how hard it is to make money and how important it is to tip properly. One incident that bothered me was when the wife took a picture of me at my other job through her car window and texted it to a group chat with her cousin and sister-in-law who also works at the cafe. She then captioned it and said, "New tattoo?" ? And for context, I have a lot of tattoos, and I'm working with a tattoo shop on the side. This felt incredibly invasive and judgmental, especially since I don't really know her. It made me uncomfortable, and I couldn't help but feel like she was making fun of me for something personal. When the cousin or sister-in-law are around, they act surprised when I ask if they can take their table. It's like they don't understand how their family coming in messes with our ability to make money. I feel like I'm being made out to be the bad guy because I just don't like them. It is difficult to explain to others because they see them as this nice family, but my experience with their actions has been anything but that. I've been struggling with whether my feelings are justified. On the surface, they seem like a nice family, but in reality, they've made me feel disrespected and judged. I don't want to feel like I'm being unreasonable, but I also know I don't like to be treated this way. The sister-in-law that I work with mentioned recently that the husband thinks I don't like him, which yeah, he's right. Some employees who aren't related to the family agree with me that they're annoying and judgmental, while the family members think that I'm being cold or that I'm the reason for the awkwardness. And you know what? It's probably true because I'm not good at pretending to like someone. They came in today again and I did my usual thing, being cordial if they spoke to me but not initiating conversation. Watching them with their baby made me feel guilty, like maybe I'm just hating on a nice family for no reason, but technically they've never been outwardly mean. So am I justified in not liking them? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, as someone who has worked in this exact situation, I do not blame you for feeling this way. These people claim to be these loving Christian people, but then they turn around and don't pay you for your work. And yes, you serving them is work. The fact that they're not tipping you is just like, oh my gosh, can you leave already? I could be making money off of somebody else. Like if they really want to do that, then maybe it's time for a pay increase or something to compensate that. Because yeah, you're right. You've only got 6 tables at this restaurant and they took up one of them. And that's literally preventing people from sitting down and being served. And I love the fact that you've caught on entirely that other people don't see what you're seeing. Because you know the truth about these people. You literally work with them every single day. You see how hypocritical and two-faced these people truly are, and that they're probably just using their religion as some kind of masquerade to hide how they really act. So my God, from someone who has dealt with this exact situation, you are completely justified in saying that these people suck and they are not genuine. And I can also say from personal experience that once I left that job, I felt so much better about myself. I felt like I could breathe again and that I could actually do whatever I wanted. And also, just in case you're wondering, yes, they're absolutely judging you. They either try to make you their project when it comes to like, I don't know, making you join their religion, where they brought you in only because you're covered in tattoos, or they secretly like resent you because you have tattoos, and so they talk crap about you constantly. And this time might be the only time you've actually found out about them treating you poorly. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. These people sound like the worst people on planet Earth to ever work for, and I'm honestly surprised that you haven't found another job. A toxic van driver keeps blocking the pavement on a road where you are not supposed to park on it, making the entire road incredibly dangerous for pedestrians. So I decided to get some revenge by not only getting him in trouble with his boss, but also getting him in trouble with the police. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, in the United Kingdom, it's currently not illegal to park on pavements other than a few locations. And where I'm based is one of the few places you get fined. For a few weeks, there have been vans blocking the pavement on a school-run route, with the vans on the only pavement available and blocking the view. Cars often fly down and around the corner, as it is a route route to sneak in front of a load of traffic if you know about it. So it is pretty dangerous if you're a pedestrian if the walkway is blocked. It started with maybe just one van, but you could still squeeze past, which is not good if you have any mobility issues or aids or any kind of like push chairs. Being a school route, obviously there's pushchair traffic and young kids on bikes and scooters. Quickly though, it was starting to get to two vans with at least one blocking the pavement. I would take photos to try and report it, but two kids and a job with different walk homes for various reasons meant that I just kept forgetting. This isn't going to be going away anytime soon, as they have parked a trailer on the grass verge for tools and other things. But it was here that my final straw was reached. Two vans were parked completely across the pavement, with another one parked completely across the pavement over the bumpy lines that visually impaired people use. It's right in front of the trailer with a company name on the side of it for once. I had to take my young kids into the middle of the road to get safely to the next side, and just as we crossed, a car came flying around the corner and down the road. And my God, if we had just been 10 seconds later, we could have gotten hurt. I immediately take a photo as normal, and just as I do, a guy comes out of the trailer and works out that I am taking a photo and starts shouting at me. I'm guessing he heard me mention the parking and slowly understood that I'm taking a photo and this was not a good thing for him. He then said to me, "The cars can get by," but I responded by saying, "It's not safe for anyone else though." But he responded by saying, "But the cars can. You can't take a photo of me. I'll call the police." But I said, "Well, don't worry. I'm contacting the authorities about your dangerous parking." And then I walked off taking my kids to school. The guy had a work top on, and it turns out in the edge of the photo, the van had a logo and website on the side, and thankfully my photo caught all of this and how bad his parking job truly was. I then contacted the highways team with all of the photos, local counselor, and his company. Now this guy's company is a big company, so I immediately got one of those marketing automatic emails stating how awesome the company was. I replied by saying, "Hey marketing, sorry but I'm about to mess up your unsubscribe stats thing, and also heads up, this really did happen, and I know marketing teams as I am from one myself, and we can make things happen fast when things go sideways. This all went down this morning with one of your employees at said location, and I've sent it to the following people and will do what I need to do to ensure that the route goes back to being safe again after this morning. If you can work your magic, here's a photo of the guy and the van." Well, less than 10 minutes later, I get a message going, "We're on it and thanks for the heads up. Leave this with us because trust me, it won't happen again." Well, the police get back to me a week later, as it was a non-urgent issue, and said that they were following up on it as well. Well, as a result, they've not been parking on the pavement at all, and all the kids are getting safely to the two primary schools and two secondary schools, as this is a key route for it. And this guy really thought he could shout and intimidate me, but trust me, I knew exactly how I was going to handle this from the very beginning. Wow, imagine being so entitled that you freak out on someone all because they're trying to do the right thing. This guy knew he was in the wrong for the way he was parking, but instead of being a rational human being and fixing his mistake, he decides to take it out on this person and be like, "Oh, you can't take a picture of me. I'm going to call the police and make this a bigger deal." And it's like, okay, friend, we can fight fire with fire. This is no problem for me. Like, if you really want to dance and make this into a bigger issue than it needs to be, then by all means, let's do this. So truly, I love the way you handled this because this guy absolutely had it coming. His behavior was atrocious and you did not deserve to be treated this way. And honestly, I really hope he gets in trouble because this behavior is completely unacceptable. Am I I the jerk for offering my friend to do more chores in exchange for cheaper rent, as I was trying to take into account her struggling financial needs? Because after I made this offer, she freaked out on me and said that I was trying to mistreat her. And at this point, I'm honestly not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female, and my current roommate is moving out of our 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in New Jersey, and my friend, who's also 24, was interested in moving in. The rent is $2,000, but she can only afford about $800 max, including utilities. Now, we've been friends for 10 years, and I thought it would be great to live together, especially since she's been wanting to move out of her parents' house. After crunching the numbers, I figured I could adjust my budget to cover more of the rent. I suggested that she pay $700 and I pay $1,300 in exchange for her taking on 3 chores that I dislike: taking out the garbage, cleaning the stove, and cleaning the bathroom. I would still do other chores, but just not those specific ones. Well, she immediately got upset, saying she didn't want someone her age bossing her around. She said the reason she wanted to move out of her parents' house was so that she could get away from being controlled. She also worried that I'd use the rent difference against her in the future, like controlling how we decorate or saying that I pay more so my opinion matters more, especially during disagreements. I then explained that wasn't my intention and that I thought it was a fair compromise considering she couldn't pay half the rent. She then told me that I sound like a man who would mistreat her. Now, for context, I'm a masculine lesbian and she's made comments in the past comparing me to a man, so this comment felt especially intentional. I honestly expected her to turn the offer down because of the rent difference, but I didn't anticipate this reaction. I explained that I thought the compromise was fair, and that if she wasn't comfortable with compromise, maybe she wasn't ready to live with others. She then agreed and then said she always knew living together was a bad idea and that she wants to live alone. And mind you, by the way, she reached out to me first about moving in. When I tried to address her comments about comparing me to a man who would mistreat her and how that felt hurtful after a 10-year friendship, she dismissed it and brushed it off as a joke. She said that clearly we wouldn't get along living together because of our personality differences. So was my compromise unreasonable, or was she overreacting? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, this is so unbelievably toxic from your friend, it's not even funny. Seriously, you're giving her a break when it comes to rent, and all she has to do is pay what, $700 and just take the trash out, clean the bathroom, and clean the stove? Like, my God, if I had that kind of deal, especially in New Jersey, then I would take that in a heartbeat and be like, oh, you got it, no problem here. Because the rent in that state is already astronomical, especially if they have like this place next to New York City. Like, in my opinion, this is a really fair deal. You took in her financial constraints and said, okay, let's see if we can make this work. Because, you know, you guys have been friends for 10 years, so you probably thought in your heart of hearts that yes, this can work and we can figure it out. But man, your friend is an idiot for acting this way. And for her to make that comment about you being a man that would mistreat her, like, that also is incredibly toxic, and I'm so sorry that she said that. Like, seriously, that was uncalled for and you did not deserve that. So no, overall, you are definitely not the jerk. You did the right thing by even trying to help her out in the first place, since she's the one that reached out to you. And the fact that she reacted this way before she moved in my opinion, is a blessing in disguise. Can you imagine dealing with that after she moved in? My God, that would have been awful. Because this friend sounds like a complete moron, and this would not be someone that you would ever want to live with. My fiance isn't being invited to my best friend's wedding, all because his future bride-to-be doesn't want people thinking that my fiance is prettier than her. And now my entire friendship, I feel, is being torn apart, as I'm now stuck between a rock and a hard place of whether I should show up to his wedding alone or if I should stand by my fiance and not go as well. Because right now I'm so confused and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my lifelong best friend is getting married later this year, and when he first got engaged, he asked me to be one of the groomsmen. I obviously accepted and have been excited for the wedding and to see my best friend finally get married. Now, his fiance and my fiance have always gotten along really well. The four of us hang out pretty frequently, always have a great time, and there has never been any problems. My fiance has always considered her a friend and has been extremely happy for them and excited about their wedding. His fiance has even asked my fiance for her thoughts and suggestions on certain decor for the wedding, as well as the venues, colors, and things like that. The official wedding invitations were sent out recently, and when it arrived at our house, I noticed it was only addressed to me and also didn't say anything about a +1. Now, I was kind of surprised by this, because I had been assuming that my fiance would be invited, given the fact that I've been with my fiance for 4 years now, which is longer than he has been with his fiance. He has been my best friend since preschool. The four of us hang out all the time, and some of my family members received invitations to the wedding. But before jumping to conclusions, I thought maybe none of the groomsmen or other friends of the bride and groom are allowed to have a +1 due to cost or things like that, since weddings are obviously expensive. The other other groomsmen are all friends of mine and his, so I called them to see if their significant others were also not invited. Well, it turns out every single one of them received an invitation that included their significant other, and the bridesmaids all get to bring their significant others as well. So at that point, I called him to let him know that I got my invitation, but that my fiance was not included on the invitation. And I asked if there was some kind of error or if they had forgotten to include her on it. Well, that's when he informed that his fiance doesn't want my fiance coming to the wedding because she doesn't want all the guests thinking that my fiance is prettier than her. Now, I will say my fiance is insanely gorgeous. If I had a penny every time someone asked me how I managed to get her, I would be a billionaire. On the other hand, his fiance isn't the most conventionally attractive woman. I feel bad saying that, and it's something I have never said out loud to anyone. But for context to the situation, I wanted to include that here. I told him that I know it's not my wedding, so I don't get to pick the guest list, but I think it's a bit unfair and ridiculous that my fiance, who they are friends with, is the only significant other of the whole entire wedding party that doesn't get to come to the wedding because his fiance is worried that people will think she is prettier than her. I told him that his fiance is the bride, so everyone is going to be looking at her and no one's going to be focusing on my fiance, who by the way isn't even a bridesmaid, so she's not even going to be standing up in front of everyone or anything like that. He said that he agrees with me and that he has already tried multiple times to explain this to his fiance, but that she won't budge and is insistent that everyone will think my fiance is prettier. So I ended up telling him that I cannot be a groomsman or attend the wedding then, because in my eyes, it's not fair to my fiance for me to attend or be in a wedding where she is the only significant other not invited due to the bride's own insecurities. Well, he's upset with me now and thinks I'm overreacting, but I just don't think this is fair. My fiance told me not to worry about her and that I should be part of my best friend's big day. But even with my fiance being completely fine with me going, I honestly just don't want to be around the bride. What should I do? Okay, for the love of your future marriage, do not go to that wedding. Seriously, inform him that you will not be going if your fiance is not also there. Because in my opinion, just because your fiance is saying go doesn't mean that that's permission to go. She's probably just trying to be nice and she's trying to be like, oh, it's okay, just go ahead and enjoy yourself. When in reality, she's probably mind-boggled at how stupid this lady is. Because trust me, if this lady wants to act like that, then you could easily turn around and be like, okay, well, if my fiance's not coming to your wedding, then you and your wife are not coming to mine. Because in my opinion, your top priority right now is to stand by your fiance and not allow this crap to fly for a second, even if she says she's okay with this, because fundamentally, this is so wrong. So yeah, your best friend is a jerk for not sticking up for you and your fiance, and his fiance is even worse for making this assumption, because quite literally, your fiance didn't do anything wrong, and she does not deserve this treatment in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled manager fires me, but still expects me to work the last 2 shifts of the week. But everything goes south fast for this manager, as they are very quickly fired for making me work shifts that I no longer was employed for. And it honestly feels so good that I got back at this guy in the way that I did. Here's what happened. Okay, so I worked at this after-school care place. It was always held at the back of the elementary school in my area, and I would change sites pretty regularly. A lot of high schoolers worked there, including me at the time, and I quite frankly loved that job. And sure, while I did absolutely love this job, I hated my manager. He was a higher up within the company that would stop by and oversee to make sure everything was going smoothly. Now, he was more important than a manager, but that's what I'm going to refer to him as from now on. He was horrible at his job, and everyone I worked with agreed. For example, there was plenty of times someone should have been fired, and he was too chicken to do it. Like a coworker who had shown up drunk to work, one that targeted me and multiple women that we worked with, who was reported by multiple of us, and one that would literally disappear for hours during her work hours. The real problem, however, came very shortly before he fired me, all because I missed my shift. Now, I had just left school, and as I was getting into the car, I accidentally closed the door on my fingers, like the middle of my fingers. And it was so hard, I broke 2 of them and had to rush to the hospital. On the way, I shot him a quick text that my friend sent who drove me because I was crying way too hard to call him up. Now, in the contract I signed when I got the job, a no-call, no-show resulted in being fired. That is, unless it was a medical emergency. So after I came to work with one of those splints on 2 of my broken fingers, he came to the site I was at with a write-up that I had to sign. Now, I asked him why because I told him before my shift had even started, but he looked at me and said, I called you saying you still had to come in and you didn't answer. But I had no service in the ER, so I never got it. I told him there's no way he expected me to come in with 2 broken fingers, and he told me that it wasn't his problem. problem. So he fired me, but told me I was still expected to show up for my 2 final shifts of the week, which he had done 20 minutes before first shift, and I honestly was so in shock. Well, on my second to last day, a different higher-up stood by that I had never met just to check in. She came over and introduced herself, holding out her hand, and when I told her my name, she retracted her hand and walked away without another word. After my shift, a coworker called me and let me know that my manager had called every single coworker of mine and told them that if I showed up again to call the police because I wasn't supposed to be there for my last 2 shifts. Now, I was in shock. He had told me to go to them. There was even an HR person sitting in on our meeting that could confirm this, so I went to the Human Resources Department. I then had a meeting with the head of the department and the woman who was there when I got fired. I then told them about the coworker who had harassed me, the write-up that didn't make sense, and the HR person confirming that he had told me to show up for my shifts. And this is where the revenge finally takes in place because he got fired because of me. They went around to my other coworkers who confirmed my story and they fired him. I learned this a few months after the whole debacle when talking to a school friend of mine. Her mom works in the school district and confirmed to me that he had been fired because of me. To this day, whenever I remember it, I smile. And yes, I do sort of feel bad, but when I tell you my story doesn't even include the half of what this manager did and didn't do, you would understand why I feel so happy. Although this may not be deemed as petty, I think it is because I have an attitude of if I'm going down, he's coming down with me. And that is honestly the only reason that I went to Human Resources. Oh yeah, this story is wonderful because I can't stand people who act like this. Managers who literally are just trying to find reasons to drag you down when they themselves don't even do their job right. Seriously, it seems like any manager is either completely incompetent or they're awesome and they're great at their job. And sure, there's like a little bit of gray area, but it seems like those 2 categories stand out the most. The people who are idiots somehow work their way up the food chain, and the awesome managers just never stick around because they're never recognized. So yeah, this guy sucked and I'm so glad that you got him fired. But I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would have never worked those last 2 shifts because that guy is out of his mind if he expects me to work even after he said I was fired, since that situation is never gonna fly in my book. An entitled Karen and her husband demands that I hand over my collectible Shadow the Hedgehog figure right as we're standing in line at a Build-A-Bear workshop to have him stuffed. And even though I said no to this Karen and her husband, I was still creeped out by the way they treated me, with me quickly leaving the store as soon as we paid. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 22-year-old autistic female, and I've had a lifelong special interest in Sonic the Hedgehog. It's been a deep obsession my entire life. So, of course, the new movie was a huge deal for me. Adding on to this, one of my favorite characters from the franchise is Shadow, because of course he is. For Christmas this year, I received the gift set of his Build-A-Bear, Voice Box, Chaos Emerald, and the actual plush. He was given to me unstuffed because we wanted to stuff him in store for the sake of the old times. For reference, I was a big Build-A-Bear kid apparently, and we had a family friend who was a manager there and would give me bears all the time. Now, many of you may not know this, but this particular Build-A-Bear is in high demand right now. He was essentially sold out everywhere once the movie had released, and people are still desperately awaiting a restock. So I was incredibly lucky to get Shadow, especially the gift set, which I'm deeply thankful for. So with that backstory in mind, my family was going out to Texas to visit family right after Christmas. So we took the unstuffed Shadow along and planned to get him stuffed at the local mall's Build-A-Bear store. My younger cousin in high school also tagged along to buy some Bluey Build-A-Bear plushies for her friend as a late Christmas gift. We get there and notice a long line. This Build-A-Bear only had the stuffing and naming machines, so there wasn't any of the other typical Build-A-Bear process things. And you know what? I didn't mind that much. I was just happy to get Shadow stuffed. Since we know it will be a wait, my cousin grabs the 2 that she planned to get, and we hurried into the stuffing line, deciding to look at the accessories afterwards. It's noteworthy to mention that this store had nothing Sonic related, and it especially didn't have Shadow himself. I noticed a couple of kids staring but brushed it off, and once I overheard a mother a ways behind me in line telling her kid that they didn't have Sonic, I honestly didn't think much of it. At this moment, I was sort of holding the stuffingless Shadow in my arms when a random lady walks out of line up to me and grabs his ear tightly. She says to me, "Ma'am, where did you get this?" And me, feeling slightly startled, I said, "Oh, he was online." Now, I wasn't sure what exactly I was expecting, but it sure wasn't for this woman to, in complete silence, step back and glare me down. No words were said, but I've worked in a fast food establishment that had a reputation of being slow, and I had never received a glare harder than this one. I'm still half convinced that this woman was trying to blow up my head with her mind or something like that. I sort of gave her a confused look in response because I had expected at least a begrudging thanks, though I suppose not everyone was raised on manners. After a solid 30 seconds of her glaring, this woman walked back to her daughter and husband in line, and the entire entire time, she continued to glare daggers at me, not taking her eyes off of me. Now, naturally, I was getting kind of weirded out. This woman was probably in her 40s or something like that, and she was glaring down a girl in her 20s over a Build-A-Bear. I glanced over to my cousin, and I saw that she was returning this dirty look in some kind of attempt to get this lady to stop staring at us. The line moves forward, and it's almost our turn to get the plushie stuffed. Right as we're waiting for our turn, this woman's husband walks right up to us. And yes, she was still glaring us down at this point. He says to me, "Hey, is Shadow for sale? I'll give you $100 right now." I looked at him and I said, no, I'm sorry. He then said to me, "Are you sure? I mean, are you really sure?" And I looked at him again and I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry." The husband then stepped back with a confused expression and returned to his wife and daughter, who, by the way, the wife was now glaring even worse. We got Shadow, Bluey, and Bingo all stuffed, got those little adoption certificate things, and my cousin ended up buying Shadow a wedding dress, as I had told her about the videos of people putting him in dresses, and I thought it was funny. Once we went to pay, we took one last look just to see that this woman was still glaring daggers at us. So we went ahead and paid, and we got out of there. Now, the story is relatively anticlimactic, but I think considering the circumstances, it is still a funny one. It's definitely the first Karen or entitled parent I've encountered out in the wild, which feels way different than encountering them at work. I've told a few friends this story, and they pointed out that she was probably planning to snatch him had I not mentioned that he was already paid for, which honestly is really annoying to think about. Luckily, Shadow is safe at home and well cared for. I'm glad I have him, and I really hope they do a restock of him soon, just so other fans can get him just like I did. Okay, this is one of those situations where I can only imagine being in that scenario, because holy crap, that Karen was 100% gonna rob you. Like, she was staring you down as if you had kicked her dog or something like that. And the fact that the husband came up and was like, "Oh, I'll buy it from you for $100. Are you sure you don't want to do that?" It's like, dude, go away. I don't know you, and I'm not gonna give this over to you. So good for you for standing your ground and not giving these people any chances to steal from you. Because I guarantee you, the second you put down Shadow and look away, that stupid family would have taken him and tried to claim that it was always theirs. And that, in my opinion, would have been devastating to deal with. Am I the jerk for kicking my best friend out of my wedding after she literally threw shade at me and my husband at our reception? Because right now, my friends are split down the middle, and at this point, I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong or not. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I just got married last weekend, and what was supposed to be the best day of my life turned into a complete disaster because of my best friend, who we will call Emily. Emily and I have been inseparable since college. She was my maid of honor, and I trusted her completely. But looking back, there were so many red flags leading up to my wedding that I just ignored. For starters, she kept making weird comments about how weddings are just a big performance. Secondly, she was oddly obsessed with my fiance, always joking about how he was the one that got away, which is like, okay, they went on one date years ago before we even met, but that was it. And third, she kept making passive-aggressive remarks about how much I was spending on the wedding, saying that it was excessive. Now, I brushed all of this off because, well, we've been friends for a decade, but then the wedding happened. Everything was perfect until the reception. Right after dinner, the DJ opened up the floor for speeches. My dad spoke, Jake's brother spoke, and then Emily took the mic, which, by the way, was completely unplanned. At first, it seemed like a sweet speech, but then she started talking about all the versions of love and how sometimes the best love stories don't end in marriage. Then she looked straight at Jake and said, "Some people end up with the person they're meant to be with, others just settle." And I swear the entire room went silent. Jake squeezed my hand under the table, but I could feel his whole body tense. I could hear whispers and people were staring at me. And then she laughed like it was some kind of joke. She actually had the audacity to toast to us after that. But at that point, I saw red. As soon as she stepped down, I pulled her aside and I asked her what in the world that was about. But she played dumb and said, "It was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." But I was not having it. I told her she had completely disrespected me on the most important day of my life and that I wanted her gone. She scoffed, said I was overreacting, but I stood my ground and I had one of the groomsmen escort her out. Well, now our mutual friends are split. Some say I was justified because she was clearly being shady, but others think I was too harsh and should have just let it go. So truly, am I the jerk for kicking my best friend out of my wedding after she literally threw shade at me and my husband? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk. That was so over the line. I honestly don't care who it is. It could have been my mom or dad up there making that speech. The second someone disrespects disrespects me and my future spouse like that, all bets are off and they have gotta go. And by the way, that is not something you joke about. You don't stand up there and say, oh yeah, you're settling for this lady. And by the way, as a reminder, this is literally at their reception. Like, what's going on right now? That is so inappropriate. Never mind the fact that she's been making weird comments the entire time and clearly has some secret crush on Jake or something like that, but the fact that she vocalized that and basically projected everything that she was thinking out onto the audience and the bride and groom, like that is so crazy and honestly not fair. So no, you're not the jerk for kicking her out. And I really hope this is someone you no longer talk to because this is not a good friend. I mean, just look at the way she tried to brush it off as a joke. And it's like, no, idiot, it's not a joke. You literally meant that. You said it at my wedding and tried to be like, oh, I'm just kidding. But there's truth to that. You really mean that. So no, you're not the jerk. And honestly, this lady is not a good friend. And this is definitely not someone that you should ever have to deal with. My mom said that I was selfish for changing my name after I came out as trans to my entire family. And right now she's causing me a lot of grief and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I came out to my mother when I was 22 years old and she did not take it well. This specific scenario happened years ago, but I've been advised before to take stories of my mother to this page as others have felt confident that she fits the entitled parent template and I'm finally acting on that advice. For context, my mother has had the usual negative responses that parents can generally have. She's told me that I turned my back on everything I was raised on, that I was just confused and that Satan was lying to me. And for reference, she is heavily religious. And also, I have nothing wrong with religion, but she is very toxically religious. She even went as far as to tell me that my straight, not safe for work books that I was reading and my Catholic friend brainwashed me into making me trans. And that's just the tamer responses that she had. Also, apparently, after I came out, she has these little index cards with Bible verses and nonsense explanations from her as to how the Bible verse was explaining that I was not actually trans or that I was wrong that I was trans. In this instance, she also blamed my Catholic friend on top of some of my other friends for brainwashing me into believing that I'm trans. Now, just to be clear, my friends never once made any impression on me to be trans. We have never even so much as discussed the idea that I was trans until I brought it up to him. Well, it got to the point where I was comfortable introducing my chosen name to my siblings and such. Of course, I told my mother as well, even though I know that she will never use it. However, it was simply not enough for my mother to not be pressured or expected to use my chosen name. She was also upset that my brother and other people around our apartment complex have chosen to respect my new name. Well, a fight broke out because my little brother has become very much like a trans social justice warrior towards my mother in defense of me. His famous quote being to scream at my mother loud enough for me to hear from the bedroom that my pronouns are he, him. This particular incident, however, my brother seemed very upset that my mother was not using my chosen name as my siblings had all generally started working at switching over how they address me. Even my older brother is making an effort, despite his own unique views that he had at the very least previously used to have. Well, my mother had this whiteboard where she would write messages on it for us right before she leaves for work, generally addressing our chores for the day and so forth. As you can expect, my mother did not use my chosen name on this whiteboard, and that was something I choked down and dealt with as I knew picking the fight with my mother was not worth it. Well, my little brother is a very empathetic individual and knows when something is bothering me. So, beyond my knowledge, he apparently continuously kept changing my name on the board from my dead name to my chosen name. And I was low-key proud of him for being such an ally, but also I figured it was going to come with a lecture on my end. And you know what? I was right. My mom comes into my room later that night to insist that I stop going by my chosen name and to continue using my dead name with everyone. She told me that it was incredibly selfish and inconsiderate of me to change the name that she and my father worked so hard to come up with, and that it took them months to come up with the perfect name for me. Now, my father doesn't seem to care or have any attachment to my name other than the fact that my dead name was named after him and was meant to be the female version of his own name, and even he's agreed to call me Junior as a compromise and still fully accepts that my chosen name is my new name. I have agreed fully to that, and I think the nickname is adorable. My mom also said that I was throwing away the gift that she and my father gave me. Now, also a fun fact story, my dead name was not actually going to be my dead name, but rather another name. The only reason I wasn't named this other name was because my aunt insisted that my cousin, who was going to be due barely a month or two after me, would be named that same name. Well, it turns out neither of us were named under this name, so I have reasons to believe that no, my mother does not actually care about my dead name itself either, and rather was only caring about me changing my name because I was changing it as a trans man. And while this is just the tip of the iceberg with this woman, I'm honestly at a place where I seriously don't know what to do. Man, I'm really sorry that your mom's treating you that way because this situation and whole scenario is is not easy to go through. I have friends and family who are trans and have come out in some kind of form, and I can tell you right now that that process is not easy. People can walk away from you, they can abandon you, and in some cases, they can straight up just deny that you're a member of the family. And that is so messed up. I can't imagine doing that to someone that you love. So truly, I hope this all works out for you, because the way your mom's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly unkind. An entitled Karen loses her mind after she doesn't get exactly what she wants out of me and my coworkers. But after watching her swear at me and flip me the bird over and over again, I ended up getting the last laugh, as I secretly recorded her tirade on my phone and submitted it to my store manager in hopes that she would get banned once and for all. Here's what happened. So at my retail job, I was doing some stocking, but then I got called up to the register to help the cashier with a long line. It was then that I heard this entitled customer, who is the Karen of this story, being rude to my cashier. This entitled Karen was screaming, telling her to double bag her bags. Then she asked the cashier if she could get someone to carry all of her bags to her car. My cashier then asked me if I could do it, and I just straight up said no. This Karen then rudely asked me why, and I explained to her that it wasn't part of my job, and our store does not offer that service. Well, when I said that, she demanded to speak to a manager, and I told her that our store manager was not in at the moment, and that I'm the assistant manager and the manager on duty at the moment. She then told me, "Oh, so you're not gonna do your job today?" But I explained again that it wasn't part of my job because we do not have that kind of service at our store. She then demanded our store manager's name, address, and phone number, but I just straight up told her no, I'm not gonna give out personal information. She then claimed that she didn't say that and told me that she wanted the name, phone number, and address of our store. Well, I just straight up refused to give it to her because at this point she started calling me awful swears. She demanded that I get a piece of paper and a pen and write down her name and phone number and give it to my store manager. Well, instead of doing that, I gave her the pen and paper to write down all this stuff, but she literally shoved it towards me and said it was my job to write it down, not hers. Now, I wanted to cancel her total, but my cashier said no. She wanted her to finish her purchase and get out. This entitled Karen then said that I shouldn't cancel her total because I would never get a customer spending as much money as she is. She then started cussing me out and told me to get out of her face even though I was 8 feet away from her, all while she was giving me the middle finger. She then went on to tell me how I would never amount to anything in life, and I would always be an assistant manager and never a real manager. Her purchase was complete and she tried to convince customers to report me to corporate, but the surrounding customers said that she was the one who acted out of line. When customers confronted her, she denied cussing me out and told them that she never did that, even though I recorded some of the incident on my phone. Her excuse for her behavior was that her husband was in cardiac arrest and she was having a bad day. She tried to pull a Carol Bryant on me and was yelling for the police, claiming that I was bothering her when she realized I was recording her. I then sent the store manager the video and I got a picture of her car and her plate numbers. Some of the customers also gave me their information so that the store manager could call them and they could tell her exactly what they witnessed. Because honestly, this is someone I hope I never have to deal with ever again. Holy crap, this lady's completely out of her mind. There are so many things about this story that are so enraging. First of all, this Karen's attitude is completely out of left field. In today's day and age with technology and like video recording and all this other stuff, you would think that people would be on their best behavior. Like, I can understand you snapping at someone if they actually did something wrong, but it sounds like the cashier and the original poster didn't do anything wrong. They were literally just trying to do their job and get stuff done. But here comes this Karen being like, "You need to double bag my groceries. By the way, you're gonna carry my stuff to my car. Thank you very much." And then when she doesn't get her way, she starts swearing at people and flicking them off. Like, come on, what is going on right now? That is not gonna make you get your way. If anything, it's gonna make you get banned from the store. And while we're on that, I cannot believe that the lower cashier did not cancel the order. The second you said, "Hey, we're canceling that order," as the manager on duty, that cashier should have been like, "Okay, you got it," and then just went ahead and canceled it and said, "Okay, have a good day." No customer acting like that, and I seriously don't care who you are, should ever be rewarded with a complete purchase. They should be asked to leave and told to have a better attitude the next time they come in. So I know if I was in the original poster shoes, I would have pulled rank and been like, "No, you don't get it, we're canceling that order." And then I would have done an override on the cash register and said, "Okay, let's cancel this garbage." But overall, I think you handled this perfectly. It was so nice to see that the customers had your back and that this Karen was not getting away with any of her garbage. And hopefully your store manager has the right mind about them, where they ban this Karen from coming into your store ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My toxic friend stole my younger brother's rare Dragon Ball Z action figure, resulting in me coming back at him even harder by getting revenge in a way that he truly will never forget. Here's what happened. So when I was 16 years old, I had this friend that I hadn't really talked to in a few years because I had strongly suspected him of stealing an action figure from my younger brother. Well, over time, my feelings about this had cooled somewhat by the time I reconnected with him, and I didn't have any friends at the time, so I figured why not? But the thing is, I felt like anything we did was always something that he wanted to do. It was always what he wanted to eat, what he wanted to watch, what he wanted to listen to, always what he wanted to play, despite the so-called rules about the guest always picking whether we're at his house or at mine. Well, I eventually got tired of this. It got to where my prior feelings about him having stole my brother's action figure had started to creep back up, and I decided to do something dastardly. Oh yeah, and as a side note, he later confirmed that he did in fact steal that action figure. So I was over at his house one night, and he put on this really boring military game on his Xbox. I honestly don't remember which one it was, as those aren't my type of game. After a while, he put in Halo, which I did enjoy playing somewhat, but then he mentioned having a few matches and going back to the other game, and I was really dreading the crap out of this. Well, his parents were cooking and hollered to let us know that dinner was done. He went to go get his dinner, and while he was gone, I got the other game out of the case, took a pocket knife, and put a deep cut into the disc from the center on out. And I did so quickly so I wasn't too far behind in getting dinner to avoid suspicion. I then put the disc back in the case and I went to dinner. I came back to his room and we ate, and he got ready to put the game in, and I was a bit nervous, but I already had a BS story ready. He put the game in and turned it on, and the game froze and would not progress past the title screen. He said, "Wait, what's going on?" And I asked him what was wrong, and he started to get a little upset. He then kept turning the system on and off again and never got any further than the title screen. He took the disc out and looked at it and said, "I don't understand, it worked before." I then told him to let me look at it, and I then let out a whistle, the one that starts off high but then goes low. I said to him, "Well, that looks to me like laser burn." He asked me what that was, and I told him that sometimes lasers in game systems and DVD players can put a line in the disc, making them completely unplayable. He then got pissed off and said, "Oh, come on, I love that game." He then put his head in his hands, and I patted him on the back to show support. We then played Halo the rest of the night, and I reassured him that the same thing won't happen. And obviously it didn't. And you know what? I didn't hang out with him after that. So sure, maybe this is a confession as well. Because you know what? To that guy who stole my brother's action figure, screw you. I mowed yards in the hot, humid summer to get that Dragon Ball Z Future Trunks character, all for my baby brother. And because you stole it from him, that meant that this revenge was absolutely necessary. Okay, I'm not one to celebrate like property damage or anything like that, but this guy kinda deserved it in my opinion. Like the second you steal someone else's property, all bets are off, and it's like, okay, anything goes at this point. You've made the choice to be a complete jerk, so guess what? I'm gonna return the favor. And personally, I've never heard of anything like disc burn before, so that obviously really could have gone one of two ways. Either he believes you like he did in the story, or he calls BS and looks just a little bit deeper. But either way, good for you for getting back at this guy in the way that you did, because from the sounds of it, this guy did not sound like a good person in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not telling my best friend at the time that he was being investigated for fraud at his former job? Because after I finally told him recently, he freaked out on me and is no longer talking to me. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Several years ago, I moved to a new city for work. At my new job, I formed a close friendship with someone who we will call Ryan. And this is somebody who played a crucial role in helping me get accepted into the company. Although Ryan left the company a few months after I started, our friendship remained strong and even deepened over time. Almost every weekend, we would go out together. During the week, we'd catch movies, go to fun places, and even take trips with our significant others and other friends. We were inseparable, always supporting each other. But then, things took an unexpected turn. Years later, while I was still working at the company where we met, an internal investigation revealed that someone Ryan had hired was involved in a fraud scheme against the company. Because of my position, I became involved in the investigation, which included looking into anyone who had direct ties to the suspect. Since Ryan had been the one to hire this person, despite no longer working there, he was also scrutinized, just like other employees who had connections to the suspect. As part of my role in the investigation, I had to sign a confidentiality agreement that strictly prohibited me from discussing any details of the case. Even though Ryan was my best friend, I chose not to tell him. I was afraid that he might warn the suspect, as he had completely trusted this person. Plus, since he no longer worked there, he didn't have access to the evidence that I had seen that confirmed that this person was guilty. I knew that he would probably believe the suspect was innocent simply because of how much he had trusted them when they worked together. It's also important to note that Ryan was cleared of any wrongdoing. In the end, I didn't see the need to tell him since the investigation continued, and I was still bound by my confidentiality agreement. Years after the investigation ended and my confidentiality agreement expired, I decided to tell Ryan everything, which is something I regret and always will. Well, his reaction was pure anger. He felt betrayed by my silence. And despite my attempts to explain that his investigation was just a routine part of the process and that he had been cleared from the beginning, he chose to cut off all contact with me. Over time, time, I've tried multiple times to repair our friendship, but Ryan has remained distant, and I miss him deeply, but I have to wonder, was I in the wrong, or did he never truly value our friendship the way that I did? Maybe that's why he didn't want to stay close after this. And through all of this, I've learned that losing a friend can hurt just as much, if not more than a breakup. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling my best friend that he was being investigated for fraud? Because right now, I'm not sure if I made the right decision. Okay, honestly, this really is completely stupid. I just don't think you should have done this. Sure, your agreement expired, but it's like, wait, how is this going to benefit Ryan at all? If he really did commit fraud or something like that, then guess what? He's probably not a good person and not someone you want to be friends with. But in my opinion, the fact that you know for a fact he's clear of this and that he didn't do anything wrong should be more of a reason to keep that to yourself and be like, okay, he's a good person and I know I can trust him and continue this friendship. Like in my opinion, the fact that you dug this up and threw it at him and said, oh, by the way, we investigated you for fraud, but that's okay, we didn't find anything. Because if I had a friend who said that to me, I would feel incredibly violated. I would also probably wonder why they didn't tell me and be like, hey, here's a heads up. And it doesn't matter that you're trying to tell them like, listen, I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you now. It's honestly not going to make this situation better, and I think in this case, you kind of ruined your own friendship. So from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like you told him to be a good person. If anything, you told him just to get rid of your guilt, and that just completely ruined your friendship. Like you really should have just kept your mouth shut. So yeah, I kind of think you're the jerk in this scenario because this easily could have been avoided if you just kept your mouth shut and not said a single thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my late aunt's heirloom necklace to her daughter after she basically tried to say she was going to keep it after I gave it to her? Because right now my entire family is turning on me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My aunt passed away a few years ago, and before she died, she gave me a beautiful antique necklace that had been in our family for generations. She told me she wanted me to have it because we were extremely close, and she knew I would treasure it, and I have ever since then. Now her daughter, who we will call Lily, is getting married, and last week she asked if she could borrow the necklace as her something old for the wedding. Now I said yes at first because I thought it was just for the wedding day, but then she casually mentioned that she actually wanted to keep it permanently. I was confused and I asked what she meant, and she said it should have been hers all along since it belonged to her mother. She said it was unfair that I had it instead of her and that she deserved it more because she is her daughter. I told her I thought you just wanted to borrow it. She gave this to me because she wanted me to have it, and I'm not giving it away. Well, she got upset and said my aunt was probably just being polite when she gave it to me, and that if she were still here, she would have obviously wanted her own daughter to have it instead. She told me I was being selfish and I should do the right thing. And now my mom and a few relatives are saying that I should just give it to her because it was her mom's and it would mean a lot to her on her wedding day. But to me, this isn't just some family heirloom. It was a gift meant for me. I understand why she wants it, but my aunt had her reasons for giving it to me. I don't think I should be guilted into handing it over just because Lily suddenly decided that she wants it now. So truly, am I at fault here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I kind of see both sides of this. Like, I understand the original poster's perspective where they're like, wait a second, your aunt gave this to me specifically. If she wanted you to have it, then she would have given it to you. So no, I'm not going to give it away. But on the other hand, I kind of understand where the daughter's coming from as well as the family, where they're like, look, that was my mom's. I really think I deserve it. And honestly, in this situation, that really does make sense to me. But the part for me that kind of tips the scale is that Lily was basically planning on stealing this from you. She said that she wanted this as something old for her wedding, but I guarantee you the second that got around her neck, she was never going to give that back. Like, you basically would have been giving it to her and she would have been like, oh, you gave it to me as a present, or said some other kind of BS like that to try and get her way. So for that reason alone, I do think that Lily is being the jerk, and I think that if she really did want the necklace, then she should have gone up to you and asked for it like a normal human being, because her scheme to try and steal it and take it away from you in that way, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. My cousin and his buddies all make fun of me because of my weight, saying that if they offer me any of the food they made, then all of it would be gone, all because I'm just a little bit heavier. So I decided to get some revenge by no longer buying groceries for the house and thus cutting out their food source entirely, forcing them to see the error of their ways and start to beg me so that I can buy them some food. Here's what happened. So this happened over 15 years ago when I started college. I stayed at a relative's house that they turned into a small apartment. Most of the residents there were okay, and along was also my cousin and his buddies. We had a joint kitchen and my parents gave me a generous allowance, especially for food to share with everyone. As they were still teens and young adults, they ate a lot, and I at the time was big but didn't eat as much as I didn't move around much. Well, this all started the second month of living there. My cousin told me not to take too much food as they were having to be frugal the last few days before they get their allowance and salary. But here's the problem. I would spend a minimum of $200 for groceries, and it's mostly just food that you can heat up in the microwave or the oven, but my cousin and his buddies would have friends over and help themselves to whatever they wanted. Other roommates didn't contribute, maybe because they just didn't use the kitchen, or they would only leave condiments. They would go through food, and the last week they would have to be really frugal. They would have bread with water, rice with salt. They would even go around places just to get leftovers. I probably contributed over 75% of the food, but didn't eat much as mentioned above, but also I would eat out because my schedule was really busy. Well, they would also insult me based on my size, both subtly and not so subtly. One time, I came home with them having a barbecue, and immediately my cousin dashed off to hide the food, and his buddy said that if they offered me any, it would all be gone. So you know what? I just stopped buying food. Simple, right? Well, instead of them being frugal the last week, they had to be frugal going on the second week of the month. They couldn't hold their get-togethers anymore, and they certainly couldn't get their favorites, especially the Spam, as it was quite expensive in our area. I once came home and they were just idling in the kitchen. They were making a meal out of a couple of eggs, and also with some clearly expired vegetables. Well, my cousin cut back on his vices, as he realized he can get drunk and starve and vice versa. They were miserable for months until I gave them a saving throw, and I bought them some fried chicken. I left after my first semester for reasons, but by then, my cousin and his buddies were very eager to kiss my butt just for a little bit of Spam, and it honestly felt so good to get them back. Yeah, this is a great story because honestly, this highlights the reason that you shouldn't bite the hand that feeds you. This guy was literally going out of his way to provide $200 worth of groceries, and these people had the audacity to be like, oh wow, you're so fat. Nobody give him any food, all the food will be gone if he has any. Like seriously, what's wrong with you people? That is so unfair. It's bad enough that this person is providing, what, 75% of the food, but to then be made fun of for your weight? Like that is so uncalled for and just really disgusting. So good for you for getting back at these people because their attitude, in my opinion, was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for not inviting my sister's fiance and his kids to our wedding simply because I literally don't know them, as my sister and her fiance have only been dating for less than a year? Because right now my parents are upset with me for not making an exception, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I are planning a small wedding. We only invited immediate family and close friends so we can afford to pay for the wedding ourselves. We also said that guests can only bring a +1 if they've been dating for at least a year, because we can't afford to pay for someone they barely know. Well, here's the issue. My sister is 25 and started dating someone we will call John in November. He's 43 years old and he has 2 teenagers. And 3 weeks ago, they announced that they were engaged. I've tried talking to her a few times about how he's too old for her and how she's way too young to be a stepmom to 2 teenagers, but she told me to mind my own business and that she loves him. Well, for our wedding, I only invited my sister. She called and asked why John and his kids weren't invited, and I told her it's because I barely know them and they haven't even been dating for a year. She said John is family now and that his kids will be my niece and nephew, so it's different. But I told her that I can't afford to pay for 3 extra people who are practically strangers to us. Well, now she's mad and says that she won't come either. My parents get where I'm coming from, but they also just want my sister at the wedding. My dad even offered to cover the cost of John and the kids. But the thing is, I just don't want them there. I feel uncomfortable inviting people I don't know to my wedding. So seriously, am I being a stubborn jerk, or is there some kind of logic in what I'm saying? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. Regardless of even if your dad wants to pay for it or not, these are the rules that you set up, and if you change it now, then all those other people who already brought only 1 + 1 to the wedding are now gonna be like, wait a second, why do they get special privileges but I don't? And honestly, like that really is how I would feel if I was one of those guests and I saw your sister roll up with all of their family, especially since they've only been dating for like a year. And can we just talk about that for a second? This lady's getting married to a 43-year-old with 2 teenagers. She is 25 years old. That is a crazy age difference, especially with having 2 kids. Like, I'm totally on the original poster side on this one. Sure, it might work out, but in my opinion, that is a little bit weird. But regardless, I don't think you're the jerk in this scenario, and I think you have every right to say that you don't want him there, especially because this is your wedding. My partner of 10 years finally confessed that she had been cheating on me, and now I'm honestly not sure what to do, as we have kids at home and I honestly don't want to break their hearts. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I've very strongly suspected for some time that my wife was regularly meeting up for quality time and emotional connection with a colleague, if you know what I mean. At the same time of this, she pretty much said that she didn't find me attractive and wanted to maintain a co-parenting type of situation. We stopped spending quality time together a year ago after she rejected me multiple times, and I'm quite sure that their relationship ended late last year because since then she's been very keen to reconcile things with me. She has told me she wants to make it work and she was wrong. Well, more recently she admitted to having this affair as I pretty much forced it out of her and was very teary-eyed and said that she wants to give our marriage a chance. There was no shouting or arguing, but I was just feeling some very profound sadness. The problem I have is that I don't think I can get over how hurt I feel. I feel like I can't go back to the way things were with her. I also feel like I lost my best friend. I believe she was going through a midlife crisis at the time, which she is probably through now. Her parents are visiting us and they are elderly, so I don't want to walk out as it will be very horrible to have to explain what has happened to them, so I've just remained in the house. And you know what? I have some really dark thoughts when I think about the future. I never wanted my children to grow up in a broken home, and when I leave, I'm worried about the damage it will do to them. For context, in our 10-year marriage, I never cheated despite lots of opportunity to do so. It was never an option for me to cheat on her. I mean, I would not have been able to live with the guilt. So this is why I'm so hurt by what she did to me and her motivation to humiliate me along the way. How do I navigate this situation so we can remain on good terms for the kids' sake and for me to forgive her so that we can have some sort of friendship? It feels like things won't get any better with time because at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, this story is one giant red flag after the other. Listen, I totally understand that you want to try and stay strong and not say anything for the sake of the kids or her elderly parents, but I think you need to look at the facts here. Your wife is only coming back to you because this other guy didn't work out. She actively cheated and she confessed to it. Like that, in my opinion, is a big red flag and completely unforgivable in my opinion. And I know if I was in your shoes and I can only speak for myself, this is something I would never let go. Like seriously, I would never be able to be like, oh yeah, it's fine, I can forgive you. Because in the back of my head, I would always be wondering, okay, well wait a second, when is she gonna try this crap again? So truly, to the original poster, I'm so sorry that you're going through this, because this situation sounds like a living nightmare. My entitled friend orders the most expensive food on the menu at a diner we were eating at, as he assumed and demanded that I pick up his bill, all because I make a lot more money than he does. But after telling him that I'm not gonna do that, and that I have no obligation to pick up his bill all because of my financial situation, there's now this weird tension in my friend group, and it's leaving me wondering if I made a mistake by not picking up his bill. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old male, and recently I went out to dinner with a group of friends. We went to a pretty nice restaurant, and before we ordered, everyone seemed to be on the same page about paying for their own meals. There was no talk of splitting the bill evenly or anyone covering for someone else. One of my friends, who we will call Jake, who's 22 years old, ended up ordering way more than everyone else. He got multiple appetizers, a steak, a couple of cocktails, and even dessert. Meanwhile, I didn't get anything crazy, just a burger, some fries, and a drink. When the bill came, Jake casually said, "Oh, you've got this right." And I was really confused and I asked what he meant, but he just laughed at me and said, "You make more money than me and you've always talked about investments and stuff. I figured you wouldn't mind covering me this time." And for context, I do well financially, but I never act like a walking ATM. I then told him that just because I have money doesn't mean that I'm paying for everyone's meals, especially when he ordered the most expensive stuff at the table. When I said this, he then got all defensive and actually said that he would not have ordered as much as he did if he knew that he had to pay for it himself. But I just shrugged and I told him that sounded like a him problem and not a me problem. Well, he ended up scrambling to pay his part, but he was clearly pissed off. After dinner, some of our mutual friends told me that I could have just covered it just to avoid the awkwardness and that it wasn't that big of a deal since I had the money. But you know what? To me, it was a big deal. I don't want people assuming that I'll pay just because I'm in a better financial position. Now, there's this weird tension in the group, and Jake is now acting incredibly cold towards me. So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to pick up his bill, especially when he assumed that I would? Because right now, I'm incredibly confused. Oh man, this is crazy because there is no way you're the jerk here. This guy seriously assumed, oh, you're rich, you can handle this, right? And it's like, no, dude, that's not how this works. You can't just go up to someone and be like, oh, it's totally fine, you're gonna take care of it. You have all this money and we're friends, so you'll just pay for it. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? That is absolutely entitled and so toxic. Not to mention that he literally ordered the most expensive stuff on the menu. Like, he was clearly trying to take advantage of the original poster and just literally assume like, oh yeah, he's gonna take care of it, all without clearing it with him beforehand and being like, hey, could you pick up the tab or something like that? Like, this is such a weird way to approach anything in life. So no, to the original poster, you are definitely not the jerk. This guy is out of his mind for treating you this way, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing and shut this guy down every single time. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my former roommate's coat after I sent it away to be donated to a women's center? Because right now, my former roommate is super pissed off at me, and at this point, I don't know what to do. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I have a friend who's 20 years old, and for the sake of the story, we'll call her Belle. We had been on the rocks with our friendship for a while, and neither of us bothered to see each other much since she stayed with me after being kicked out of her flat. Well, a couple of days ago, we had a huge argument argument about the way that I spoke to her. I tried to explain and defend myself, but as always, she victimized herself. Started to say that I never bother with her and she's the only one who ever makes effort. I said I only check in every once in a while since her boyfriend doesn't like her at my house anymore due to him liking being around my brother. And for reference, she had a thing with my brother out of spite when we had an argument. Well, she then got really upset and angry. She was calling me names and saying I was useless, and then she blocked me before I could even reply. Fast forward to today and she texted me again. She said to me, "I left my coat at your place and I'd like it back." Now by this point, I gutted my entire bedroom and me and Belle have very different sizes in weight. So I thought the coat she's referring to was one of my old coats considering it was in the back of my wardrobe and it had been there for over half a year. So I chucked them into a charity bag with lots of other clothing to take them to a women's aid center. Well, I told her that her coat was gone and that I had donated it. And when I said that, she got really mad and started to demand that I pay her back for the coat. Now, I refused to do so as in my head, leaving something you apparently care about so much at someone else's house for nearly 7 months, despite being told to pick it up, doesn't really translate to someone who cares about their belongings. So at that point, I can honestly assume that no, you no longer want that coat. And also, I had forgotten it was hers. And I told her that it was her own fault for not listening and picking up her stuff. Well, she's now incredibly mad at me. So it begs the question, am I the jerk for throwing that coat out? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. The way she's acting is really weird, and in my opinion, I don't think you have any obligation to her at all. First of all, anyone who's gonna call me ugly names and swear at me and say that I'm useless and then block me before I can have some kind of response, like no, I'm sorry, any sense of maturity is gonna be thrown out the window. And that coat, in my opinion, is just karma working its magic. Seriously, you don't talk to people like that. You don't treat them like garbage and then expect anything out of them. So no, you're not the jerk for donating that because it's not your fault that she left it in your closet. And if she had just treated you a little bit better, then all of this could have been sorted out in a reasonable manner. Am I the jerk for not allowing my kids in their grandparents' house after I found out how much of a mess that place was? Because right now I'm incredibly disgusted and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have 2 daughters with my husband. Over the summer, my husband's uncle unexpectedly passed away at 56 years old. Upon his death, it was discovered that he and his 9-year-old son were living in absolute filth. I'm talking the stuff you would see on the TV show Hoarders. If authorities have been called and seen a child living in that house, there is no doubt in my mind that he would have been charged with so many crimes. The 9-year-old now lives with his mother out of state. We had gone several years of not knowing that they were living in these conditions, and this promptly started a discussion between my husband and I about how when our kids are school-aged, we need to speak up right away if we have a feeling that this could be going on with any of their friends or classmates. Well, flash forward to a few weeks ago, and I caught a glimpse of the inside of my in-laws' house. I always knew that my mother-in-law is a saver, to put it nicely, and I had seen her house before and it was always incredibly messy. But this was before she had grandkids. My mother-in-law has been watching my kids part-time since my oldest was born, mostly at our house. However, the last 6 months of my pregnancy with our second, I would bring the oldest to her and be kept out of the loop about what they were doing or where they were going. When I saw the inside of her house, I was absolutely appalled that she would allow my 2 very young children in that environment. They were not there at the time I saw the house, but they were there just a few days before. Well, I bit my lip and I did my best to hide my face while I was there. But immediately I called my husband on the way home and I told him that neither one of our children were allowed back in that house ever again. And I am admittedly still shaken up with everything that had gone on with his uncle's house. But looking at the condition of my in-laws' house, I will not allow my children to be exposed to that. There are paths around the house. You cannot see any part of the kitchen table or counters. There's no access to the couch, etc. Now, my husband was very understanding and supportive, but my mother-in-law is pouting and saying that it's unfair that I won't let my girls go to grandma's house. Now, I know that going to grandma's house is a special thing for both the grandparents and the grandkids. So am I in the wrong for taking this experience away from them? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This is so gross. Because here's the thing. If they're really gonna watch your kids, then they need to have an environment that's safe for them to be around. So if they have like trash and it's super gross and unclean, then guess what? That's not a safe environment for a 2-year-old. And I find this so funny that the mother-in-law is trying to be like, wow, you're not letting me have my girls over at grandma's house. But she's literally skipping over the pile of trash to say that statement in and of itself. Because the second we ask, okay, well, why is that the case? You could just look around and be like, oh, that's why, because your house is a pigsty. So no, you're not the jerk here. This is so weird. The fact that she would be upset about this is crazy. And in my opinion, if she wants those kids to come over ever again, then she either needs to clean up her act or else that is literally never going to happen. Am I the jerk jerk for not inviting my friend to a party after he consistently overstays and breaks all social contracts that you could think of? Because right now, after he found out that he wasn't at a party I was hosting, he lost his mind at me, and now he is incredibly pissed off. Here's what happened. Okay, so recently I had some friends over for a party at my house, and most notably, I did invite my friend who we will call John. I didn't lie to him or say that we weren't doing it, or even try to rub it in his face. I just had some friends over and he didn't get the invite. I felt bad, but at the same time, he always stays too late, makes things really uncomfortable for me, and is just a difficult guest to have in my house. Well, I hosted a Super Bowl party and he stayed roughly 2 hours later than everyone else, even though I straight up told him, listen, party's over, dude. He vapes, says horrible swear words, you know, the kinds that have some really awful connotation to them, and he makes jokes about some of my mental health issues. Now, I love him a lot and he's one of my oldest friends, but it's at the point where when he comes to my house, I have anxiety the whole day leading up to it. Anyways, he called me during my party and asked me what I was up to and if I wanted to catch a movie. I said I actually had a couple of people over, so I couldn't tonight, and then he asked me who was there. So I told him, and then he asked me why he wasn't invited and if he could come too. Well, I said something along the lines of, well, not tonight, man. He then just kind of lost his mind at me and sent me a bunch of angry text messages the next day, which in my opinion is a huge overreaction because I tried to be as nice as I could about things. So seriously, would I be the jerk if I just stopped inviting him to stuff? Because right now I honestly am not sure what to do. No, you don't owe this guy anything. First of all, you're not the jerk for not inviting him because in my opinion, you have every right to preserve your peace. This guy's going around making awful jokes, swearing up a storm and saying these terrible things about you, while also staying way too long while everyone else is already going. It's like, seriously, dude, you're like striking out here. You're not a good guest and you honestly are not that good of a friend. And the best evidence of that is him being told no. And unfortunately, that is kind of a good way to see if someone is actually your friend or not. You tell them some bad news or you tell them they can't do something, and then you see how they're gonna react to you. And the way this guy's reacting is completely over the top, like this is so weird. So no, you don't owe this guy anything, and if he's making you that uncomfortable, then I think there's no problem with you saying sorry, but you're not invited. Because I really think that this guy is not a good friend in the slightest. Am I the jerk for stopping my brother from proposing to his girlfriend at my wedding? Because right now I've upset the entire family and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so last weekend I had my wedding, which is a day I had been looking forward to for a long time. We had planned everything carefully and the day was unfolding just as I had hoped. My wife looked radiant, our guests were enjoying themselves, and everything felt perfect. Then, during the speeches, my brother unexpectedly stood up and announced that he was going to propose right then and there. I was completely surprised. I told him in no uncertain terms that the day was meant to celebrate me and my wife and that his proposal attempt was not appropriate for the moment. He argued that this was his only chance, claiming he had been waiting for the perfect moment for a long time. While I understand that he was excited and perhaps had been struggling to find the right time, I felt that my wedding was not the right place for him to have his moment. A wedding is very personal, and I had planned the day to be just about me and my wife. Well, later, some family members suggested that I had ruined his opportunity, and even my mother hinted that I should have just let him go through with it. And this has left me feeling conflicted. I do sympathize with my brother's feelings, but I also believe that certain days should remain focused on their intended celebration. After the reception, my wife and I discussed the situation. We both felt that while family matters can be complicated, I needed to protect the sanctity of my wedding day. It's hard to see someone you care about get hurt, but at the same time, I must stand by my decision to keep the day as I planned it. So honestly, am I the jerk for shutting him down and insisting that my wedding remain a celebration solely between my wife and I, even though it upsets him and some of our family members? What should I do? Oh man, this pisses me off so bad, like seriously. If you've watched this channel for a while, then you know that these kind of situations make me want to like rip my hair out. When are people gonna learn that someone else's wedding is not your chance to propose to whoever you want to get married to? Like, this is not your time in the spotlight. Are you kidding me right now? You have no right to stop the reception and propose to your boyfriend or girlfriend, and as a result, completely overshadow the bride and groom who are currently getting married. Like, this really is insane if you think about it. So you know what? Even though everybody's upset with you guys, I think you did the right thing by shutting this down, because this day was supposed to be about you and not your brother in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not going to my sister's university graduation after she literally took over my A-level celebration party and made it all about her? Because right now my parents are still pissed off at me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old female and I passed my A-levels with really good grades, and my parents threw me a small party to celebrate. Now this wasn't anything huge. I only had some close family and a few friends in attendance. I was really happy because I worked my butt off and it felt like a big moment for me. Well, Well, enter my sister, a 22-year-old female. She was set to graduate from university a few months later, and during my party, she completely took it over. She kept bringing up her degree, talking about her future plans, and even joked that my A-levels were cute compared to what she had to go through. At one point, some of my family members literally started toasting her instead of me, and she just soaked up all the attention. I barely got to enjoy my own celebration because it turned into a preview of her graduation. Now, this isn't the first time she's done something like this. Anytime I accomplish something, she finds a way to make it about herself. When I got into my first choice university, she went on about how her application process was so much harder. When I won an academic award, she made a speech about how she inspired me. It's frustrating because it feels like I can never just have my own moment. So when her graduation came around in August, I decided not to go. I felt like if she couldn't even let me enjoy my small achievement, why should I be expected to show up to hers? Well, my parents were furious and said I was being selfish and petty. And she was upset too, but honestly, I just didn't feel like celebrating someone who constantly downplays my own achievements. Now, months later, my parents still bring it up, saying I ruined a big moment for her. My sister has mostly let it go, but my parents keep trying to guilt trip me about it. Now, at the time, I feel like I was justified, but now I'm wondering if I was being too harsh. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you were being too harsh because it's obvious your parents are playing favorites. Anyone in their right mind who's having a celebration for one kid would not then encourage a toast for the other. Or better yet, would be like, okay, that's cool, older sister, but we're talking about your younger sister today. And in my opinion, they're only upset that you didn't show up to this other sister's graduation because they obviously see her as the favorite of the family. And it's like, I'm sorry, but that's not okay. Because as far as I'm concerned, it really seems like they encourage this kind of behavior from your older sister, where she can basically get away with saying anything she wants as long as she still has like a good reputation in the family. So no, you're not the jerk here because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Would I be the jerk if I didn't pay my dad back $300 after he spent the tens of thousands of dollars saved for me and my college fund on another woman and another family? Because right now I'm still pissed off and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my dad cheated on my mom, had another family, and spent the college fund my mom had been saving for me since birth on the other woman. In fact, that's actually how my mom figured out he was cheating when I was around 15 years old. He was diagnosed as a narcissist and never talked about it with me and never directly apologized. We sort of act like it just never happened, and he's not emotionally open. But also, he wants to be close with me, but I have a wall up. Anyways, last year when I was unemployed, he loaned me $300. Then the other day, he called me saying that his wife told him it was actually $800. I then sent him the receipt showing that it was $300. But honestly, I'm just sitting here like, well, it's $300. You're my dad, and you technically owe me tens of thousands of dollars. So with all that in mind, would I be the jerk if I just didn't pay him back? He says that a year is too long and that I need to learn about responsibility. What should I do? Wow, your dad's a piece of garbage. First of all, I don't think that's anybody you should ever get money from, because clearly he doesn't care about you in the slightest. I mean, just look at the way he's acting. He literally tried to be like, oh, it's $800, not $300. And it's like, dude, I've got a receipt. Are you kidding me right now? Not to mention the fact that this is coming from the other woman, you know, the one that got all the money that was supposed to go to you for college. Like, this guy really sucks, and I'm so sorry you're dealing with him. So in my opinion, I don't think you would be the jerk if you didn't pay him back. This guy neglected you and did not care about your future in the slightest. And that $300 is not even a drop in the bucket, especially compared to what this guy has literally put you and your family through. My stepfather sold off my dead grandmother's jade pendant necklace that I bought for her quite literally 24 hours after she passed away. So I decided to get some revenge in a way that he will truly never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 23-year-old female, and I lost my grandma due to COVID complications in January of 2022. I had bought my grandma a jade necklace pendant and bought myself a rose quartz pendant. Her necklace cost about $200, and this was because it was wrapped in real gold and it was a huge piece of jade. Now, it's important to know that my mother's husband, namely my stepdad, treated my grandmother and I horribly. He mistreated me for years and treated my grandma like his personal servant. My grandma raised all of my siblings and myself, and my youngest half-brother on my mom's side is my stepdad's son. Well, not even 24 hours after her death, my narcissistic mother told me that she would go through her room at the end of the week. And mind you, this is not even 24 hours later. So her room was cleaned, and I noticed a fat wad of cash in my stepfather's hand. Well, I asked my stepfather if I could have my grandma's jade pendant back, as it was very important to me because it was hers and she wore it all the time. But my stepdad just told me that he just sold it because apparently everything in her room was now his. And when I heard this, I was infuriated. infuriated. I never felt that kind of rage before. So the following day, I plotted my revenge. While my mother and stepfather were gone, I got busy. For some context, my mother and her husband depended on me a lot while living with them. So I took his brand new laptop, you know, the one that he bought selling my dead grandma's jade pendant, and filled up the bathtub with water. I dropped it in the water and I left it there for a good 10 minutes. I then took his laptop charger and cut small holes that he couldn't see inside of it. I also made sure to dry the laptop off really well and put everything back where it belonged. But you know what? I went even further. I took everything I bought in that kitchen and I donated it to the people who really needed it. From the air fryer to the microwave to the plates, the bowls, and the cups, even the pantry cabinet that I bought, guess what? It all got donated. But then I took it up a notch. I took all the toiletries I bought with my money out of the bathroom and I locked them all in a lockbox. So sure, if you're gonna sell my dead grandma's pendant, then guess what? No laptop for you. In fact, no more of anything that I bought. And the icing on the cake is that I had proof of purchase of my dead grandmother's pendant. So I decided to make his workplace aware that he is a thief. And while I did move out in May of 2022, I've been no contact with the both of them for a very long time. And honestly, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Wow, your stepfather's a monster. Not to mention your mom, who's also right up there in that monster category. You mean to tell me that your grandmother passed away, what, 24 hours ago? And then suddenly your stepdad is rifling through her stuff as if he has any ownership over any of that? Like, are you being for real right now? That is so crazy to me. Because obviously that jade necklace meant so much to you. It was a connection to a grandmother who clearly raised you and your siblings. Not your mom, not your stepdad, your grandmother. She's the one that stepped up. And this is all in spite of your stepfather treating her and you like garbage. So for him to go through all of her stuff and be like, oh, this is all mine now. By the way, I sold it. See you later. Like at that point, I don't blame you for the actions that you took. Because I know if I was in that situation, I'm just not sure if I would be as rational and responsible as one might expect. I'm pretty sure I would do something similar to the original poster and be like, no, I don't feel bad about this and you deserve it. Especially with the laptop. Like that guy is heartless. He literally sold it off and spent all that money on a laptop. Like the first thought in my head anytime someone passes away is finding those family heirlooms that help you remind them of that person who's gone. But this guy just wants to make a quick buck and says, oh yeah, this is mine. I'm gonna spend this however I want. So truly good for you for getting back at those people and for choosing to go no contact. Because from the sounds of it, these are not the relatives that you would ever want to keep in contact with. My two entitled friends demand that anytime we go on vacation with anybody else, we are required to invite them as well, or else they would freak out and call us bad friends. And now after I ignored this stupid rule that they imposed, they're now incredibly pissed off at me, saying that I'm an awful friend for excluding them on purpose. And right now I honestly feel so lost and I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 22-year-old female and I have a big friend group of around 10 people. We usually get along fine and get together a few times per month. A few years ago, we tried to set up a vacation with all of us, but it didn't work out because no one could find the exact time to go. So we went with 7 people, leaving the other 3 behind. And the other 3 were fine with it and wished us to have fun. Now this vacation was kind of weird because of 2 people specifically. Let's call them Danielle and her boyfriend Marcus. They micromanaged a lot, told us what to do and where to go at all times, which might be because it was Marcus's vacation home and he knew the location well, but even still, it was super annoying. They got mad at me when I didn't like their chicken and called me stupid when I had to leave 2 days earlier than the rest of us because I got an unexpected internship which I really needed for school. Overall, the vacation was moderately fun, but not something that I wanted to repeat. Now, Marcus and Danielle are very controlling in general. At one point, they even checked our locations, saw that we were hanging out with a few people, called us and asked us why we didn't invite them. Then, last year, I came up with the idea of going on vacation with a few people, and I asked in the group chat and I said I could only bring 4 people, and the first 4 who responded went with me. Well, Danielle and Marcus were not part of this vacation and got extremely upset, calling us names and saying we weren't real friends and all this other garbage. Now, we offered to have them come along if they booked an Airbnb nearby, but they only agreed if we split the bill with them. We tried to accommodate and communicated every detail, but the booking got postponed so much that it cost us a lot extra. We're talking almost $200 each. We couldn't find a solution and decided to go without them. Well, they got very mad and said that we cannot go on vacation without including everybody. The other 3 people from the first vacation were also not going, and they were completely okay with it. It was just Danielle and Marcus who were upset. They think that because they invited us the last time, they should join now. They even imposed a rule that if a vacation includes 3 or more people, we have to invite everybody. Well, fast forward to last summer, and I found that rule stupid. And I asked my 4 best friends in this group if they wanted to go with me on vacation. And when they said yes, we started planning. everything. My grandma surprised us for my 21st birthday by purchasing rooms in a beautiful hotel for each of us, so it was quickly decided that we would go. We knew we had to tell Danielle and Marcus somehow, because just going without telling them would make them very upset. Well, we postponed it, and 2 months went by without telling them, making it really awkward. I then finally told them kindly what the plan was, and that it wasn't intended to be rude. Well, this completely backfired. They became extremely upset. When I first told Danielle, she seemed okay with it, but then I received a text from her saying that they were actually extremely mad at me. They were upset that my friends and I didn't communicate and just booked the vacation without them. Now, we somewhat understood, but we just didn't want to go through the whole thing again like last year. And now, a few months later, they have completely cut us off. They told us that we were the worst friends ever, and that we shouldn't treat people this way, and that we needed to behave differently. So right now, I'm really curious to what others think, because maybe I really was a bad friend and I just need some perspective. What should I do? Oh man, these friends sound obnoxious. Seriously, this is taking fear of missing out to a different level. They're basically saying, you can't go on vacation without us. Don't you ever do that again. And it's like, dude, I could do whatever I want. And that really applies to your situation too. If you want to go on vacation without these people, guess what? You can do that. You are well within your right to do whatever you want with your friends, and you do not need to check in with Danielle or Marcus about anything. Like, their behavior is so weird, as if they've got to say over everything that happens in the group itself. Because for me personally, I've got a big friend group, and I do stuff with different people from that group all the time. It's not like you're excluding people, but instead you're just literally going and having fun with a set of people who are available. You still love everybody and you still go on vacations when you can, but it sounds like Danielle and Marcus are the only idiots in the group who are like, no, you've got to invite us too. So yeah, Danielle and Marcus sound incredibly weird, and in my opinion, these are not good friends in the first place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled couple come into our restaurant literally 5 minutes before closing, and now they're demanding that we cook them some food, even though we are literally about to close and our line cooks have all gone home. But thankfully, this is just the moment that our bartender was waiting for, as they finally, for the first time in a while, got to kick them out right there on the spot. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is from the time I spent working in a kitchen. It was a restaurant right next to a music venue, and we got busy on concert weekends, but during the off-season, it could get quiet with just a few regulars. We had music nights, and the bar was usually serving drinks until close, so we would be open all year long. During a quiet late fall day after doing cleaning and checking dates, we had some apples that needed to be used for something before they went bad, so I used the opportunity to work on my pie recipe. Now, we usually don't do pie, so it was a change of pace, and it kept me busy so I would not be forced to scrub some unused corner of the restaurant. The pie was great, and the head chef said it was the best one he had ever tasted. He even took one home to eat. The kitchen closes and we clean everything and break down our stations. We put dates on our stuff and then we throw it in the walk-in. I then get to the point where I could wait out the last 10 minutes at the bar. It is about 5 minutes till closing, and I'm waiting for my ride home. Well, in walks the entitled customers of this story. 2 people for drinks at 10:55 p.m. isn't unusual, but we end up telling them that we are closing soon. They then say to us, we want food. And at this point, I stand up. I say to them, I'm sorry, the kitchen is closed, and the line cooks have all gone home. We can't serve you any food. This guy in a leather jacket then sneers at me and says, I thought this was a restaurant. So I look at him and I say, well, we have some apple pie that I made myself. I can serve that to you no charge for some dessert if you really want it. And by the way, I was using my best customer service to try and get the bartender a good tip. Well, the woman in furs replied indignantly, we want real food right now. Well, my bartender friend says unceremoniously, well, then you should probably come in before 10 o'clock. The bar is now closed, so please get out. And my friend said this as they start turning off the lights. I then walk to the kitchen, taking the bartender's cue, and start turning lights off as well. Now, I was in the walk-in when I heard the guy follow me into the now dark kitchen and say, seriously? The bartender then chimes in and says, no, that's not the door out, and I can't have you in the kitchen. Please leave the way you came in. The bartender then starts printing the end-of-night credit card reports. Now, to someone unfamiliar with the kitchen, it must have looked like I walked through the door and then vanished. Well, the couple stomped out of the bar, and I poked my head out of the fridge to turn off the parking lot lights, letting them go to their cars in complete darkness. Later, when the bartender drove me home, they told me that the couple has only been there maybe a few times, and every time they've never tipped, and they've argued the bill with the owner on more than one occasion. She had always wanted to kick them out, but when they refused free dessert to try and get food an hour after the kitchen had closed, and were so rude about it, she finally had her opportunity. The two of them never came back while I was working there, and the bartender and I ate the pie at her house and had a good laugh about it. Wow, imagine coming in 5 minutes before closing, and not only demanding food from the kitchen, but also following someone like an idiot back to the kitchen and being like, seriously, are you kidding me right now? Like, that is honestly so annoying. So good for that bartender for finally getting the chance to kick them out, because from the sounds of it, they sound like really miserable people to deal with. Am I the jerk for not going on vacation with my friend and her kids, even though me and my other friend who is going on vacation plan to have just a trip away with just the two of us? Because right now, my friend with the kids is saying that this is going to ruin our friendship, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend, who we will call Sarah, is a single mom with 2 kids. She's been going through a rough time after separating from her husband last year, and I've done my best to be there for her. My other close friend, who we will call Lena, me and her have always accommodated Sarah's situation. We would visit her at her house so she wouldn't have to go out, or planning outings around her kids' needs, and just being as flexible as possible. Well, recently, Lena and I decided to go on a vacation together, just the two of us. When Sarah found out, she got very upset and told us that she had expected us to include her and her kids, since we are her closest friends and she doesn't have many people to travel with. She also said that because she's in a difficult situation, she thought this was something we would do for her as her friends. Lena and I explained that while we do love her and her kids, a vacation with them would be completely different from what we have in mind. We also offered to take a shorter trip with her and the kids, like a long weekend, but she dismissed that because she wanted a full week at the beach. She then said that she would have let me join if the roles were reversed, but to me, that's not a fair comparison. If I were tagging along on a vacation with her family, I'd be adapting to their plans, whereas if she came with us, we would have to plan the whole trip around her kids. Sarah has now said that she doesn't know if our friendship will survive this, which I think is an extreme reaction. I understand that she's disappointed, but I don't think it's fair to guilt trip us into changing our plans. She's also acting like we're abandoning her, when in reality, we've been incredibly accommodating for years. I feel bad that she's struggling, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's my responsibility to ensure that she has someone to travel with. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. Okay, I really do understand where Sarah's coming from, but no, I don't think you're the jerk. You and Lena have every right to go on whatever vacation you want to. Like seriously, just like I've said before, there's nothing wrong with going on vacation with one other person or a group of people while also excluding someone else. It doesn't mean you don't care about them, and it also doesn't mean that you're trying to, like, I don't know, ruin the friendship. So personally, I think that Sarah's completely overreacting, and I think you're well within your right to do exactly what you want to do. My entitled manager demands my uniform back, basically implying that I no longer work there, while also demanding that I hand deliver it to him when I get the chance. So I decided to get some petty revenge by literally making this process as difficult as possible, resulting in my former boss being more angry than I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. So I used to work in a hotel as a porter. We had to wear white shirts and black pants, and they provided us with a uniform, which was just a nondescript black vest. I worked there part-time, but also had another part-time job at the post office. Now, I told them about the second job before they hired me. They asked me what I would do about conflicting shifts, and I said I would work for whichever company booked my time first. So if the post office said they wanted me next week from Wednesday to Saturday, and then later the hotel asked me to work that time, I'd have to say that I was unavailable. I would also naturally do the same thing if the situations were reversed. Now, I honored that agreement the entire time I worked for them, and it wasn't a problem for over a year. Then, one day I get told by the hotel that I have to work an upcoming weekend. I said I couldn't accept the shift because I had already booked one at my second place of work. My hotel boss then said, well, this is a huge contract, and we have a massive wedding taking place on the same weekend as our large conference, and we need all hands on deck. I then reminded them once again that I couldn't accept a shift if it conflicted with one I had previously booked. Well, my boss then got really annoyed and very pushy. They tried to say, we have to be able to rely on you, but I reminded him that they could rely on me doing exactly what I promised in my interview, and that they had been able to rely on me for over a year. I also pointed out that it's not reasonable to demand that I work a shift that I hadn't agreed to work. And you know what? My boss was still pissed off when I hung up. Now, they didn't fire me, but over the next month, I couldn't help but notice I never got any shift offers, and it became obvious I was being fired, but without actually being told that I was fired. I called several times and I asked if there were any shifts, but I was always told, we have nothing for you at this time. And they said this in a really cold and nasty tone. Well, I checked with my friends who worked at the hotel, and they all said that business was normal, and they could see no reason why I wasn't being offered any shift. But you know what? It's honestly no worries. I just picked up more shifts at the post office, and they paid almost twice as much, so that's cool by me. Another couple of weeks go by, and my direct supervisor at the hotel called me to ask for my uniform and vest back. Now, I asked why, saying that I had not been fired, so as far as I know, I still work there. But my boss just sidestepped my question and refused to answer, and refused to admit that I had been fired. He just kept saying, we need that uniform and you have to give it back. I said to him, no problem. He then starts saying, you can drop it off any time. And I interrupt him by saying, no, I won't won't be dropping it off. He stopped for a moment, flustered, and then said, "But you have to. It's part of your employment contract." I replied by saying, "Yes, I know. I read the contract, and it merely states that I have to return the uniform when requested. It doesn't say I have to deliver it to you, so I won't be doing that. You can send someone to pick it up at a time that is convenient to me." And also for reference, the hotel was in a different city from my hometown, so it was about a 45-minute drive to my place. Well, my now ex-boss tried to bully me, but it's funny how losing his ability to deny me work had somehow shifted our power balance. He then sputtered and stammered as he tried to figure out some way to goad or coerce me into driving the vest to him, but finally he gave up. He then said to me that he would send someone, but he said to me that he would send it sometime and that I need to be ready for whenever that is. But again, I told him no, that he would have to contact me to prearrange a time that was convenient. I said I checked my calendar and that he could call me back in a couple of days to make arrangements. And sure, I know it's really petty, but hearing the annoyance and anger in his tone as we spoke was very, very enjoyable. At the end of the day, he never did send anyone to pick up the vest, so I ended up using it as part of a Halloween costume. Man, I can't stand managers who act like this, who literally bring you on board and they're like, "Oh, we understand you have a second job," and then they try to be like, "Okay, your other job doesn't matter. You need to work for us right now. We need all hands on deck." It's like, nope, I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen. I've got other arrangements and we already agreed upon this when I got hired. And I'm sure there's some like legal reason why he wasn't like, "Okay, you're fired," and was instead demanding that you hand over the uniform, basically implying that you're fired without actually saying it. So yeah, good riddance to that idiot, because that guy clearly is an awful manager. And I know for a fact that I would hate having to work for someone like that. An entitled old customer screamed in my face one too many times. So I decided to get some petty revenge by hiding his favorite food in a way that he would never find it. Here's what happened. Okay, so when I was a university student, I worked in a little supermarket for over a year. I was 19 years old at the time, and since the United Kingdom minimum wages are age-based, I was making very, very little money. We had a really complicated machine for printing and cashing lottery tickets, and any corrections and refunds had to be signed off by the manager, who, by the way, was never around when we needed him. Cashing one ticket alone took something like 15 steps. I mean, it was wild. So for the first few weeks, I was quite slow at it in order to avoid making any mistakes. Well, on my second day there, an old guy turned up, and in addition to some food, he wanted a few lottery tickets. He didn't seem to appreciate my lack of speed, and he leaned into about 8 inches away from my face, and he screamed at me, "Yes," which is when I tried to check if the numbers I was about to print off were correct. In retrospect, it really wasn't that big of a deal, but I was young and very small, so his screaming and towering over me was enough to make me feel upset and afraid. He looked very pleased with himself for making this young girl earning a few pounds an hour tremble with fear. I already had a bit of retail experience under my belt from a prior job, but on that day, I cried in the employee bathrooms for the very first time. The job was not great, so I was brought to tears by customers a few more times during my time there, but I was broke and a fast learner, so I was always available for overtime. I ended up working about 55 hours a week, and the guy turned out to be a regular, which meant that he had absolutely known that I was new, and I got to serve him often over the next year or so. I also got the hang of things and did pretty much everything else there, from training others to keeping the refrigerator's temperatures log, ordering stock, logging and clearing waste, as well as reducing items which had reached their sell-by date. Well, one benefit was that I learned a few things about this idiot who had screamed at me, like how he was nasty to everybody who worked there, especially the younger ladies, how he was retired and seemingly not very well off, and how he appeared to keep track of food sell-by dates and would consistently turn up soon after certain meat-based items had been reduced for the final time. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being old or on a budget, but it's always a bad idea to scream at people just because you're having a bad day and they're not allowed to defend themselves, especially the ones who handle your food. The other benefit was that because I was working there full-time, I was the one serving him 99% of the time, which gave me ample opportunities to deliver my petty revenge. And it was going to be a slow burn, just like cooking a frog, as they say. Being a broke university student, I figured that I could both stick it to him and save myself a bit of money, since food price reductions stacked with my employee discount. Now, he never screamed at me again, but for 10 months, I hid all of his nearly expired favorites behind the dairy items, and purchased them for myself once he'd left in a huff after finding them gone. I didn't even care for sausages that much, but I regularly ate something called toad in a hole out of sheer spite, and that vile jerk probably managed to buy reduced sausages maybe 5 times in 10 months. He then got visibly more and more upset over time because other shoppers had seemingly caught on to his strategy. I always nodded sympathetically. "Sorry, we have sold out the last ones. Maybe try again later in the week." But you know what? I actually rather like the toad in the hole now, and I now have it as a special revenge treat. So the moral of the story is don't scream at the people who handle your food, because then you might just just miss out on something that you really want. Okay, if anybody got 8 inches away from my face and screamed at me in the way that the original poster is describing, then in my opinion, the gloves are off regardless of what that job is. I don't care the circumstances, I don't care what's going on, I don't care what manager's breathing down my neck, that is so inappropriate. So sure, I totally understand where the original poster's coming from, where they were young and they just didn't know what to do, but my god, if that was me nowadays, I would absolutely say something back. Like, this guy's got such an awful attitude, I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. And you know what, he probably was some sexist weirdo who clearly was only going after and like giving younger ladies a harder time. So honestly, I love the way you handled this. You literally took away one of the few reasons he came into this store, and you slowly made his life just a little bit more miserable overall, all because he decided to scream in your face. Because this guy deserves to get put in his place, especially by the way that he talked to everybody in that store. An entitled jerk tried to scam me while I was abroad in Rome, Italy. So I decided to get some petty revenge by throwing his scam product off a bridge in a location that would be really hard for him to retrieve it. Here's what happened. When I was in Rome, we had read about these scams that people do, one of which is trying to give you free stuff, but then guilt trip you into giving something back to them, usually money, in return. At one point, this happened, and my whole group fell for it, despite the fact that I had informed them about this. But you know what? I declined to take a bracelet. Basically, this guy comes up and asks where I'm from, and when you tell him, he makes some stupid connection between there and where he is from, and claims that you two are family, and then he offers to give you something from his family, and then ties these bracelets on your arm, which are really hard to get off. Then he asks if you have anything for his family, holding out his hand expecting something. So in this instance, my son proceeds to hand the man $20. And this is one of those situations where it's like, okay, it is what it is. He was fine with it, and this wasn't the issue. This was just me having seen this scam in process, and now I was aware of how it worked in more detail. Also, we found these same identical bracelets at a small shop like 10 minutes later for maybe 30 cents. Well, this is where the petty part of my story comes into play. The next day, I'm by myself walking by the Coliseum, and one of these guys asked me where I'm from. Knowing that he's going to try and make a connection, I say that I'm from the moon. Well, when I said that, he was really caught off guard, but he continues his pitch anyways. I tell him I'm not interested, but he just stays on me and keeps nagging me. So finally I stop and I'm like, what is it? And he says to me, I want to give you something from my family to yours, bro. That's it. And I say to him, okay, it's for free, right? And he literally confirms by saying, yes, this is for free from my family to yours. And so at this point, I'm feeling really petty because this guy's been bothering me nonstop. So I take the bracelet and I say thank you, and I immediately turn and abruptly start walking. He then dashes to catch up with me and says to me, yo bro, you got anything from my family? I say to him, no man, sorry, and I just continue walking. He then grabs me by the shoulder and looks me dead in the eye and says, give it back. And I'm like, what? But he says it again more sternly, give it back. The sales pitch nice guy voice is no more. So I was like, oh, this bracelet? Which at this point I was holding and not wearing, and at this point he holds out his hand expecting me to hand it over. I just look at him and I say, no, this is mine, you gave it to me. He says, no, it's not free. I then reminded him that he specifically said, oh, it's free from his family. He then tries to cut me off as I'm going to cross the street. He then starts swearing at me. So I take his bracelet and I huck it down a 20-foot drop onto the ground level of an area outside the Coliseum. And sure, he could still go get it, but he would have to walk all the way around the ramp and far away from me. He then starts swearing at me over and over again. He then looks like he's gonna spit on me, and I tell him that's a very bad idea. So finally, he turns and walks away. And I honestly love the fact that I ruined this guy's day even just a little bit. Yeah, I can't stand people who panhandle or like try to scam people out of money like this, because this scam is so annoying. You're literally just on vacation and you're trying to enjoy yourself, but these scammers are trying to get as much money out of you as possible. So truly, I love the way you handled this because this guy absolutely had it coming. My toxic neighbor claims that he can make as much noise as he wants by revving up his obnoxiously loud Mustang all day, every day. And even though we've desperately told them to please quiet down, these neighbors refuse to comply, forcing me to get some revenge on them in a way that they truly will never forget. Here's what happened. So last spring, my old neighbor, who was a saint, sold her house and moved away. And the people that moved in were awful. The guy, who we'll call Pete, owns some sort of new black Mustang that sounds like it has no muffler, and he revs it up and down the subdivision streets in the evening, literally 5 days a week, when a lot of people, myself included, sit on the back porch and watch TV during the summer. It is relentless. This guy also drives up and down the state highway that is on the other side of my house, doing the same thing but even louder, because there he can drive 55 miles an hour. And by the way, you can hear it for miles. On top of that, he has friends over regularly in the backyard, and they sit there on the weekends and some weeknights literally revving up the car. It truly is so loud that you cannot do anything but wait for him to be done. There was a big Facebook conversation in the homeowners association Facebook group, and a bunch of neighbors politely asked him not to do this. Well, what was Pete's exact response? He said, "I pay a lot of money for this house. I'll do what I want in my own yard," while also saying, "The streets are public." Well, I didn't like that, so here's what I did next. For a little bit of context, our subdivision has about 150 houses on about 300 acres. So basically, it's very big. Most of the properties in this subdivision are between 1 to 4 acres in size, with me having a 3-acre corner. Due to an agreed-upon land split sale 10 years ago between the homeowners association, all neighbors within the vicinity, and the former owners, my next-door neighbor's house is on the smallest piece of property in the subdivision, sitting at maybe half an acre. Well, I know that from 15 years of living here, anytime I have a fire on the side of the yard next to Pete's house, the smoke is guaranteed to travel in the direction of Pete's house. Now, I know this because I couldn't ever have a fire when my old neighbor was outside, as it would literally fill her backyard with smoke if ever the wood had even a hint of moisture in it. So I moved my fire pit about a dozen years ago to the other side of my house and towards the road so that I could be a good neighbor. But you know what? Pete letting me know that he wouldn't quit making noises reminded me that I just loved having my fire pit right in the middle of my backyard. And it was here that my revenge started to take place, as Pete literally regretted ever messing with me or the neighborhood. It took me a single weekend to dig up the pavers and blocks, move them back to my preferred spot, and get myself a fire going in my new fire pit. And so at this point, I just needed to wait until Pete had people over. And you know what? I made sure the inaugural fire was a good one. Pete had friends over, it was a nice day, so that's when I started the fire. I got it just about started, and then I added all the wettest, grossest wood that I could find. Well, about 10 minutes later, Pete and all of his friends were visibly upset by the stench, so all of them went inside. They came back out a little later, so I just added more wet, nasty wood. And just like that, they went in again. I kept that up the entire day, and then I added a bunch of grass clippings to keep it going overnight. The next day comes around and it's still smoldering. And guess what? It still smells awful. I put out a Facebook post on the Homeowners Association website that let people know I'd be continuing to utilize my fire pit as often as possible, so they could bring me their lawn scraps. I had about 20 people respond in a few hours, saying their clippings were all mine. And you know what? I kept that fire going. My dogs are good alarms, and they rush outside anytime anybody is in Pete's backyard. So I would hear the dogs scramble, go outside, and add more clippings. After about 3 weeks of this happening, Pete and his wife came out and very kindly asked me what was going on with the fire pit. She politely informed me that her hair would smell like campfire if she went into her backyard for any amount of time, and they could smell it coming into their house through their ductwork. He said I was making it hard for him to enjoy his backyard with his friends. They then asked me if I could ease back with the fire because I probably didn't know that it was impacting so much of their home life. And this honestly was the moment I was waiting for. I looked at him and his wife, and I said that it was clear that sometimes we didn't recognize how big of an effect something could have on our neighbors until they told us about it. But then I said, as objectively as possible, that I normally live by the same "I'll do what I want with my yard" thought process as Pete does, and that I have a right to enjoy my yard. At this point, I looked Pete dead in the eyes, and I said to him, "And I know you support that because of how the conversation concluded about your car, right, Pete?" He looked at me like I had scratched his favorite CD. He absolutely knew what I was doing, and when his wife looked at him, it just finally dawned on her. She said she gets it and that we won't be hearing the Mustang anymore, and all I said was thanks. I then took a gamble and I put the fire out right then and there, and you know what? It was the right call. I haven't talked to them much ever since then, and I'm not too concerned about that because I haven't heard that Mustang ever since then. So all in all, this was a really good case of getting revenge on people who absolutely deserved it. Wow, you've got to have some serious guts to sit there and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna do whatever I want. This is my Mustang and I'm gonna make as much noise as I want whenever I want." And it's like, dude, are you sure you want to play that game? Because the people in this neighborhood have been here longer than you, and I guarantee you they're gonna get back at you in a way that you're not expecting. And this is the perfect example of that. This guy not only makes a horrible first impression as a neighbor, but he also decides to like poke the bear and be like, "Oh yeah, what are you gonna do about it?" So truly, to the original poster, I love the way you handled this. This really is super inspiring because this goes to show you that you absolutely do not have to put up with anybody's garbage. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for supposedly kicking a pregnant woman out of her seat, even though I was trying to claim my seat on a train that she was taking? Because right now I feel really guilty and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few hours ago and I've only just calmed down because I hate conflict. So basically, I was doing a long travel day of about 5 hours and I decided to book my train in advance to ensure that I had a reserved seat. When I get on the train, a woman is in my seat, so I politely inform her that I think that's my seat, and I show her my ticket and I ask her to move. She checks her ticket and says, well, I must have sit in the wrong seat, and then puts her head down. I say, well, it's my seat, so could you please let me sit in it? Now, at this point, her partner sitting opposite of this lady starts speaking at me in what I perceive to be an aggressive tone. He suggests that I find another seat, which is not possible because it's very busy, but I say to him, look, I booked this seat. There are no other seats available in the carriage. He then raises his voice at me and says to me, well, someone's in our seat and she's pregnant. I then say that I understand and that I have a heart defect, which is true, and said that everyone has their own medical issues and reasons for standing for long periods of time and why that might be difficult. Now, it's this moment where I might be the jerk. I ask him to not speak to me in an aggressive tone and that I will make a complaint. Well, once I said that, he then starts swearing at me, and I again ask him to stop. Eventually, the woman gets up and allows me to sit there, and he continues to berate me, saying that he hopes I feel good for myself and that I'm quiet now that I have my seat, when really I just stopped engaging as I felt there was no point. One of the other men who was sat beside him offers that him and his partner sit in the seats opposite me, as this is a table seat, and at this point he sits his partner down and then laughs at me and points in my face. Eventually, when the ticket inspector comes around, they are asked to move to their assigned seats, and she asks if I'm okay as another passenger had made a complaint on my behalf. But even so, was I the jerk in this situation? Should I have just left them alone as she was pregnant? And did I in any way escalate the situation? What should I do? You are not the jerk. You did everything right. Here's the thing, on public transportation, especially when you reserve a seat, that seat is yours until the end of the ride, and not this guy or anybody else has any say in the matter. You literally just want to sit down. You didn't want to stand. You didn't want to have to go sit somewhere else. You wanted to sit there and you paid to sit there. And just because this lady's pregnant or this guy's getting pissed off is in no way justification for them to take that seat. And also, this guy is such a coward, because if his partner really was this pregnant, then why didn't he stand up and let her sit down? Like, this guy's an idiot. He would rather have you move away instead of, I don't know, finding their own seat and going there. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong, as these people truly were completely toxic. An entitled Karen comes back to my store after she made such a fuss the last time she was here, after she didn't get exactly what she wanted, because now she's come back with a vengeance, treating me and my coworkers in such a way that honestly is so disrespectful. Here's what happened. Okay, so 3 days ago, I had this entitled Karen demanding that I walk with her to her cart and load her bags into her car for her. I explained to her that we do not provide that service in our store, and she then went off and cussed me out and told me that I would never amount to anything in life and that I would always be an assistant manager and not a real manager. Well, I was working at a different location, and she came in and I refused to serve her. She begged and begged me to serve her, claiming that she didn't do anything to me, but I reminded her how she treated me that day. She went on and on about how she did treat me horrible that day, but she was having a bad day too as her husband was in the hospital, and stated that regardless I should serve her. But again, I told her no. Well, at this point, she crossed her arms and refused to move aside or leave, and demanded that I call the police for her. She told me that she was best friends with the police and they would arrest me for not serving her. At this point, I laughed at her because I know that was not going to happen. She then asked me if I was going to pass up the opportunity to get a total of $100 from her, and I said, you know what? Yes, because I told her that we get customers every single day spending up to $100. She then asked to see my employee card, which I do not have, and by the way, she believed that all retail employees had a special card with all of their info on it, and she just wanted to see mine. Now, when she said this, I just laughed, and I told her that we don't get employee cards. She then demanded my full name and my phone number. She said she was going to make sure I got fired and that I would never get another job ever again. But still, I told her no. She then demanded to see the store manager, but he wasn't there, so she demanded that I get her another worker to serve her. Now, my cashier was outside on her break, and so I told her that we're not going to serve her. Well, after I said that, she actually went outside to bother my cashier, and she was trying to convince her to serve her. But thankfully, my cashier told her no, that's not going to happen. She then told my cashier that she apparently filed a police report against me from the other time that she was in our store, and she then came back in standing by her cart, and I was serving another customer. Now, at this point, she started to cry and was telling the customer that she did nothing wrong and that she was just a poor old innocent lady that I refused to help for no reason. I told her that she wasn't innocent, and I explained how she treated me, and the customer agreed with me and said I had every right to not serve her. At that point, I was starting to realize that she wasn't going to leave, so I called 911, but as soon as she saw me on the phone explaining to the dispatcher what was happening, she finally left. And you know what? I was surprised that she did that, because I thought that she wanted to stick around and talk to her friends, who she seriously claims are the police. Okay, so this is a story that we covered the other day on this channel, and my god, this lady just keeps getting worse and worse. The first time she was in that store, where she was acting like a complete nut job, but now it's clear that she's like kicking it up another level. And that is honestly so weird, because just look at the way she's acting. Like, does she have no shame in the way that she's acting towards everybody around her? I will literally never understand why people act like this. So yeah, that Karen's crazy, and I really hope she never comes back. And hopefully the police get involved, because her behavior is truly unhinged. Am I the jerk for avoiding my mom after she told me to suck it up when I broke my fingers at the gym? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I was at the gym where a heavy weight fell onto 3 of my fingers on my left hand. I was in such severe pain that I thought I was going to pass out. While I was sobbing, I called my mom, and it's important to know that I'm at college and I'm far away from home. I told her that I thought I broke my fingers and that I wanted to go to an urgent care. Now, my mom has never been empathetic for physical injuries or mental health issues. When she heard me, she told me to suck it up and rest. So I figured I would wait for a while. I mean, who knows? She could be right. Now, as a side note, I feel the need to mention that my fingers did not look deformed. So, other than bruising and swelling, I was unsure if they were broken or not. While I was waiting, my roommate came home and saw the state that I was in. She took one look at my hand and assured me that we needed to go to urgent care. Now, I didn't want to betray my mom, because she always said to never go to the ER or urgent care due to our terrible insurance. However, I went and researched the cost of an out-of-pocket x-ray at the nearest urgent care, and it was only $200, which I was willing to pay. I told my mom this, and she said, well, you better hope your finger's broken, or else I'm not going to help you pay for anything. So I was under a weird circumstance where I hoped my fingers were broken for the sake of saying, well, I told you so to my mom. I finally went to the urgent care and I got an x-ray, and they confirmed that both my pointer and middle fingers were broken, and that I may need surgery if not healed properly. When I called back my mom later that day and told her the news, she basically laughed at me and told me that I should be glad that they're broken. Well, 3 weeks have gone by and I've not spoken to her since. She has texted me and asked for updates on my fingers, but I feel conflicted on why she's suddenly acting like she cares when she clearly didn't in the first place. She's also not someone you can easily share your feelings with, so I'm not sure how to go about our next conversation. Should I just ignore it, or should I try to bring it up with her? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh wow, your mom is really not a nice person. Seriously, who in their right mind would be like, oh, I really hope your fingers are broken. If not, I'm not gonna pay for any of this. It's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? Wouldn't you want your kid to be in good shape and not have 3 broken fingers on their hand? Like seriously, this lady sucks so much. So no, you're not the jerk for avoiding your mom, because I think if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing, because her behavior is unbelievably toxic, and you did not deserve that treatment in the slightest. An entitled couple next door to my hotel room refused to keep down the noise, despite me asking them politely to please keep it down, as I have work in the morning at 5:30. But after they kept me up until 1 o'clock in the morning, I decided to get some revenge by making it so they would never get any sleep anytime soon. Here's what happened. A few years ago, I was staying in a hotel room in suburban Detroit. I was a Navy reservist on my drill weekend. On Saturday night, this couple shows up in the adjoining room with a buddy and their probably 6-year-old kid. I think nothing of it until it's about 10 o'clock p.m. and 2 more people show up. And now, at this point, it's a party. They were being obnoxious, so I knock on the door and I ask them to keep it down and that I have work in the morning. Well, they responded in a way that honestly really pissed me off. They said to me, "We're not even being loud. How can you hear us?" I respond by saying, "Well, bro, I'm in the room next to you. There's a door between our rooms. I can hear you clearly." They then just said, "Yeah, okay," and then closed the door in my face. 45 minutes later, they're just as loud as they had been, so I call the front desk. I then hear the neighbor's phone ring, and once he hangs up, he says, "Oh, if he thinks we're being loud now, just wait till later." They then continue to party and are obviously being loud on purpose in spite of me. Eventually, I got tired enough and I fell asleep at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I then woke up at 5:30 to get ready for work. Well, this is where my petty revenge comes into play. I plug the alarm clock into the socket near the adjoining door. I put the speaker against the door they can't open. I put the radio between stations. I crank up the volume to max, and I set the alarm for 5 minutes after I leave the room. And honestly, I can picture them panicking and being furious at not being able to stop it. And I truly would have given anything in the world to see their reaction. I love this story so much because trust me, I think we've all been there, where we hate our neighbors and they're making a lot of noise or they're disturbing us in some kind of way. You really did the right thing by saying, "Hey, I'm trying to get some sleep. I've got work in the morning. Can you please keep it down?" But for them to come back at you and basically double down and be like, "Oh, you think we're being loud now? Just wait till later." Like, that's so toxic. Like, dude, just be a reasonable human being, turn down the volume, shut up just a little bit, and then everybody gets to go to work in the morning and be fine. So truly, I love the way you got back at these people because in my opinion, they absolutely deserve it. My entitled, idiotic managers refuse to uphold store policy, leaving me quite literally alone in trying to figure all of this out. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work for a small local family-owned pet supply store. The managers there are very young and have a difficult time upholding store policies. So what happens is the store manager or owner will send out messages telling store associates that we are not supposed to allow customers to stack store coupons or discounts. Now, the unwritten store policy is only one store discount per transaction. Now, it seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, that is until the customer walks up to the register with a fistful of coupons, and I say, I'm sorry, I can't apply all of these coupons per our store policy. And then the customer will say something like, well, when did that go into effect? And I say, it's been a policy since I started working here. I then call for the manager on duty, and I explain to her what's happening. Well, without even saying a word to the customer, the manager on duty says just to give it to him. Now, luckily, I wasn't the actual cashier on this transaction, and I was only called over to help the cashier apply one of the 3 discounts that she had given the customer. I walked the cashier through the last discount, and then the customer leaves. I then explained to her that our store manager would have never allowed that transaction ever. The following morning, I give my store manager a copy of the receipt, and I tell her I tried to stop the transaction, but it was completely overruled. And the store manager acknowledges that my understanding of the store policy and how long it's been in effect is correct. She also states that everything about this transaction was completely wrong. She then proceeds to tell me how supposedly the customer came back after his transaction to find another manager on duty to complain about my attitude. I made 3 separate attempts to have a conversation with the store manager regarding the alleged complaint, but every time I tried to talk to her, she literally walked away from me. And by the time my shift was over, I was beyond pissed. Fast forward to yesterday, and there is now a notice posted on the registers facing the customer explaining only 1 store discount per transaction is allowed, and that customers are being instructed to talk to a manager if there are questions. And I'm just sitting there like, are you kidding me right now? This has happened to me so many times. I just don't know what to do anymore. I've had so many conversations with the store manager and owner about this particular issue that I am befuddled as to why I'm still having these conversations 2.5 years later. What should I do? Okay, I've been in this scenario, and honestly, the best thing that I did was find another job. You know you have a bad manager or a bad owner when instead of following their own store policy, they throw you under the bus by making you look bad. Or they don't even follow the policy themselves and you're the only one doing it. And even worse is if you don't follow the policy, then you're in trouble, but they can run around doing whatever they want whenever they want. And it's like, yeah, you're basically being thrown under the bus no matter what you do. And that is so unfair. It really is not fair at all. So truly, I hope this works out for you because this really does sound like a nightmare, as this is not a scenario that you deserve in the slightest. Today at my job, for the first time ever, I was faced with a problem that I did not know how to solve. And this has now really shaken me up to my core, and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So at the grocery store I work at for almost 9 years now, we have an instant scratch ticket machine, and it didn't print someone's ticket, and my brain literally froze for a minute. Have you ever had one of those times where you sort of know what to do, but you're not entirely confident and you're too afraid to do that thing? So you call someone for assurance because you worry you'll make things worse? Because that's what was going through my head. Anyway, I checked to make sure that no money was stuck or tickets were stuck, and from what I could see, they weren't. So I thought to just take the ticket that she wanted, but as I'm not the manager nor the supervisor, I really didn't want to screw something up as I was by myself and I was really panicking. Anyway, so I just gave the woman the tickets after getting an okay from a manager to do so. And again, I had never done this particular thing before, and I didn't want to screw something up. And I explained to her that I just wanted to wait for an okay from my manager, that giving her the ticket was fine, and the woman just kept getting irritated with me. I then told her over and over again, thank you for your patience, and I apologize for the inconvenience. Anyways, I gave her her tickets, and she grabbed them out of my hand and walked out the door, even after I apologized multiple times for the inconvenience. And now I'm anticipating her possibly calling to complain about me, or that I screwed something up even more. And I'm anxious over possibly getting in trouble, or I'm worried my boss will think I'm an idiot or something like that. I know it's probably lame or sad to care so much about a part-time job, but I'm worried I'll come to work tomorrow to a complaint, or people at work thinking that I'm stupid. I really hate how anxious the part-time job I've been at for almost 8 years can still make me feel. But it was so frustrating, and the woman was just standing there while I was trying to figure out what to do, and I felt bad bothering other coworkers who were at home at 7:30 at night. What should I do? Honestly, the second you got that approval from a manager is the second you can no longer feel guilty about this. Because if you really do have a complaint or any kind of like feedback of like, oh, you did this wrong, then I would point to my manager and be like, wait, they said I should do it this way. And then that way you can have your bases covered. Because honestly, in my opinion, there's nothing worse than having a manager who tells you to do it one way and then will willingly throw you under the bus and be like, I never showed you how to do it like that. So the fact that you asked somebody for help, in my opinion, is like the smartest decision to make, because that way you can be sure for a fact that you're doing it correctly. My boyfriend of 10 years confessed to me that he has been cheating on me with his best friend who's also our roommate. And now after I found out the truth, my boyfriend's asking if he can stay with me as well as his best friend at the same time. And at this point, I'm honestly disgusted and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend, who we will call Nick, has been with me for about 10 years and we are high school sweethearts. And I truly believe that we were building a life together. 2 summers ago, we moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment and his best friend, who we will call Liam, basically became a permanent resident. He crashed on our couch nearly every night, left messes everywhere, and acted like he lived there. And honestly, I hated it. But Nick kept brushing off my concerns, saying Liam just needed a place to hang out. After a year of this, we decided to move into a slightly bigger place so that Liam could have his own room instead of hogging our living room space. I thought this would fix things, but as soon as we moved in, Nick started spending every night in Liam's room playing video games. At first, I thought it was just guys being guys. They had been close since they were little, and I was just happy that Nick was able to spend more time with his close friends. But then, entire nights would go by where I wouldn't even see my own boyfriend, and sometimes he wouldn't come to bed at all. Other times, he'd go straight from Liam's room to work the next day. I kept telling myself that I was overthinking things, that Nick and Liam had been best friends forever, and I was being irrational or something like that. But deep down, I knew something felt wrong. Then, after months of emotional distance and our relationship slowly crumbling, Nick finally came clean in a way that truly has shattered me beyond anything I could possibly describe. As he told me that he's been sleeping with Liam almost every single night. He said he was cheating on me with his childhood best friend for months. And here's the kicker. He claims he still loves me, but he also loves Liam, and he wants us to continue our relationship with Liam included. I feel betrayed, confused, and honestly disgusted. I can't even process what I'm supposed to do. I feel like this is unforgivable. He's acting like this is just something I should adjust to. Like I should be grateful he's even including me in his new relationship. I feel like a third wheel in my own home, but I also feel like if I walk away, I'm throwing away 10 years of my life, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is crazy to me. Your boyfriend's cheating on you with his childhood best friend, while also saying like, oh, we can keep our relationship going while I sleep around with my best friend on the side. It's no big deal. Like this guy is out of his mind if he thinks this is okay. So yeah, I think the fact that you feel this is unforgivable and that you are disgusted and confused and feel completely betrayed is absolutely rational. Like you're the only rational person in this entire house. And I know for a fact if I was in your position, I would never take this sitting down. I would never be okay with my partner cheating on me with their best friend who's also a roommate. And it kind of makes me wonder how long this was going on. Like seriously, this doesn't just happen overnight. This is clearly something that's been boiling in the background for a while now. And I bet when Liam moved in, that's exactly the time they decided to be weirdos and be like, oh yeah, we could keep our relationship going, but also I'll keep my girlfriend around too. Like seriously, this is so messed up, it's not even funny. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, and yes, you absolutely have every right to be disgusted by this, because your boyfriend is cheating on you actively and currently with another guy in your own home, and that is not something that anybody should ever have to deal with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for wearing my wrist brace at work while my coworker has a broken wrist as well? Because right now another coworker is really giving me problems about this, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was a really weird situation. I'm a 24-year-old female and I work as a cashier at a sub place, and my coworker last week broke her wrist falling on the ice, so she now has a cast on. Now for reference, when I was 14 years old, I was diagnosed with tendinitis in both wrists, and for the most part, it doesn't flare up unless I'm doing a lot with my hands. Well, I've been doing a lot of embroidery recently, and as such, I've caused a flare up. It's been bothering me for about 2 weeks, and I wear my brace at home, and generally speaking, just kind of sucked up the pain while at work, because with my coworker wearing a cast, I felt weird about wearing my brace. Well, yesterday, it was bad enough that I had to wear it at work. As I'm putting my stuff down and getting ready to start my shift, another one of my coworkers, who we will call Lisa, started to glare at me. She then asked me in her usual snobby tone that she uses with me, "What is that for?" So I told her about my tendinitis and what it was, but then she started getting all huffy as if I was making it up. Mind you, the coworker who has the broken wrist didn't care. She didn't say anything, but for the rest of my shift, Lisa kept giving me dirty looks, which is not out of the norm. I mean, she just doesn't like me. Close to the end of the shift, I had to use the bathroom, and being as it's hard to do so with a wrist brace, I took it off. After coming out and washing my hands, I was putting the brace back on when Lisa made another offhanded comment about how I was so lucky that I could take take mine off. Now, I didn't do this to spite anyone. My wrist just hurts, but now I'm getting ready for another shift, and I'm trying to decide if I should just suck it up and go without my brace at work. So seriously, would I be the jerk to wear one? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. First off, no, you are definitely not the jerk. Lisa is a busybody with nothing better to do with her life. Like seriously, that's all this comes down to. She is just some loser who's clearly obsessed with hating you. And she's trying to make this into something that it absolutely is not. Because here's a fun fact. Everybody in the office could walk in with a wrist brace and it would still not be any kind of shot at the coworker who broke their arm. Like there really is no equivalency here. The fact that she has a problem with this says more about her than it does about you. And the fact that the coworker who did break her wrist is like, look, it's fine, I have no problem with it. Like in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be like, fine, they're cool with it, then I'm gonna be cool with it. Because Lisa does not have your best interests in mind, and I guarantee you she's trying to mess with you simply because she doesn't like you. Am I the jerk for how I reacted to my husband's ex-wife's girlfriend buzzing my stepson's hair? Because right now, this entire situation feels incredibly overblown, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to explain the relationships here, I married my husband, who we will call Alex, about a year ago, and we've been together for 4 years. He was previously married, and after they had agreed to divorce, she told him that she was pregnant. And for the sake of the story, we'll call this ex-wife Kate. Kate had been cheating on Alex with someone we will call Jessica, who's a 32-year-old female, for about a year. I had known Alex for years through mutual friends, and I met his son when he was about 6 months old. So now, back to the present day. Kate and Jessica are together still, but very hot and cold. I went to pick up my stepson from school. Jessica had dropped him off, and he seemed really quiet and sad. I asked him what was wrong, and he said he was sad because he had no hair. For reference, he has beautiful curly hair, and he told us that he wanted to grow it out into a mullet. At that time, my husband cleared it with his mom that they were both okay with that, and she agreed to have me trim it as needed, like around his ears. Well, he took off his hat and it was buzzed down to his scalp. I was shocked, but I also just said, well, I think you look very handsome, but I thought you wanted to grow it out. Why did you cut it? Well, apparently Jessica was going to trim it and forgot to put the guard on. And when she realized that, it was too late, and she had to buzz it. When we got home, I called Kate. She didn't know how bad the haircut was and was tied up at a work event. She suggested I make sure I get the whole story on what happened. So with her permission, I went right to Jessica after I called my husband, who was driving home from a couple of hours away, and explained what was going on. So I called Jessica, asked to verify what he had said, and tell her how upset he was. She said that is exactly what happened, but didn't see why it was such a big deal. She kept saying that I'm overreacting and that it's just hair. So I tried to explain that as a kid, there is so much that he just doesn't get a say in. So it was a big deal to him. I then told her that she should never go near his head with clippers ever again. Well, she came back with, well, you're not his mom. And when I reminded her that she wasn't either, she said to me, well, I'm a lot closer than you are. I've been there since day one. To which I said, yeah, because you were an affair partner. Don't cut his hair ever again. And then I hung up the phone. I then called my husband back to explain everything, and I calmed down. And he had been on the phone with Kate discussing things as well. I also texted Kate to give an overview and say I was sorry if I overreacted. It's now the next day, and Jessica is trying to tell Kate that I shouldn't be allowed to cut his hair if she can't, and that I need to get my parenting privileges taken away. And I honestly just think that's crazy. And just to clarify my role as a step-parent, Kate and my husband meet twice a year alone to discuss parenting things. And at the last one, Kate said she is comfortable with seeing me as a parent and is ready to include me in the meetings going forward. So am I the jerk for getting upset with Jessica for not only buzzing his hair, but for how she reacted trying to minimize it? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you tried to have a rational conversation, but then Jessica was the one who decided to try and insult you, and that, in my opinion, is not okay. Because in my opinion, at that point, the gloves are off. You want to start going there, then let's go there. Because this could have been a mature conversation. This could have been worked out really easily, everybody could have walked away happy, but instead, Jessica decided to get toxic and then tries to be like, oh, you need to take away her parenting rights. And it's like, oh, okay, you're that pissed off that she got one over on you. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, but this really is a messy situation. And hopefully this all works out for the stepson, because this entire argument, in my opinion, is incredibly silly. Am I the jerk for taking my dad home after missing a train instead of waiting for the next one to go on a family outing? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my dad, my sister, and I were supposed to take a train downtown for a car show. I was the one who arranged and paid for everything, since I thought it would be good family time. I told him to be ready by 12:15 p.m. so that we would have enough time to drive to the station and park before the train arrives at about 1 o'clock p.m. The drive is about 25 minutes, so my thinking was that I would have about 49 minutes to drive to the station station and figure out parking and get to our terminal. I had also never been to this station, so I just wanted to have extra time in case things go wrong. He said that he would come out to the car at 12:15 p.m. So my sister and I got to his house at 12:10 and we just waited. He then didn't come out of his house until 12:31 p.m. I told him that we would be late, but he said that we were fine since it was only a 25-minute drive. We arrived at the station at 12:55 p.m. and here's where the first problem came up. We could only find reserved parking spots. So we had to park in a reserved spot so that I could get out of the car and go find somebody to ask where the regular lot was. Well, it turns out nobody is in the customer support area as it is a holiday, and at this point it's 1 o'clock. Then my dad saw a security officer in the lot and told me to go ask him where the regular lot was, to which he told me that it was at the other side of the road. So I park up in the regular lot and run back to the boarding area where my dad and sister were waiting, but the doors of the train literally closed as it was about 20 meters from the train. Well, my dad and sister didn't board as they saw that I couldn't make it. I was upset but willing to let it go as there was another train coming in an hour, and then everything got heated. My dad got mad at me for missing the train because I should have known where to park instead of wasting time in the reserve lot looking for the regular lot. And at this point, I was super mad. I told him that the reason I wanted to come early was because I didn't know the station and where everything was. And since he was late, we didn't have enough time. He said I should have researched the parking lot before coming, and we then got into an argument which eventually got very bad. At this point, I didn't even want to go to the car show as I was so pissed at him for blaming me. I told him that I would wait in the car and that he and my sister could go to the show and that I'll pick them up when they come back. He then called me selfish as he and my sister got ready for this family outing just for me and that he wanted me to come on the next train as we already made the drive over to the station. I told him no because I was in tears from the argument and I wasn't in the mood to spend an entire day with him after he said terrible things to me for something that he did. Eventually, he got in the truck and we headed home. He told me to never speak to him again as I was selfish and I wasted his time, and he will hold the grudge for at least a month. So seriously, am I the jerk for taking him home instead of going on the next train after he was late and tried to blame it on me? Because seriously, at this point, I don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk because this really would have pissed me off. Maybe I'm alone on this one, but I do not like being blamed for something that is not my fault. That seriously sets my hair on fire and I really don't like it, especially when it's coming from the person who actually is the problem. If your dad had simply come outside when he said he was going to, you guys would have had just enough time to make it on the train. You would have had time to park, get to the station, and be ready to go. So for him to be like, oh wow, this is your fault for not researching it better. It's like, no dude, this is your fault for not being outside on time. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and the fact that he's trying to pin this on you, in my opinion, is unacceptable. I'm currently seriously considering ending my engagement and my relationship with my fiance after he yelled at me in a way that I've not seen since my last awful relationship, because right now I feel very scared and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I went out with my fiance on Valentine's Day, and my gift was going to this thing called Martini Wars, and I think this was something on Eventbrite that he found last minute. It was a battle between bartenders and, as you can imagine, a lot of drinking. Well, things were going fine until the ride home. In the Uber, his tongue was hanging out of his mouth, his eyes were rolled back, his head bobbing back and forth, and I was afraid he was going to vomit in the car. So I kept the windows down and I tried to comfort him. We made it home fine, but then he became very obstinate. He refused to listen, he was still borderline sick, so I kept telling him to move to the toilet. Well, he wouldn't budge from the spot in the bathroom he was sitting at, and he vomited all over the floor. I then became upset at how unnecessarily defiant he was being. But then, at some point, he became angry and showed me a side that I've never seen from him in the 5 years I've known him. He began screaming at me and didn't back down. For reference, I was in an awful relationship beforehand, and it triggered the worst memory of that relationship. I begged and pleaded with him to stop yelling, but he just wouldn't do it. At some point, he left the room, and I took the opportunity to get a hotel that night. Well, fast forward, and I woke up in the hotel to a text message of his saying that he didn't remember anything, but he was very sorry. But I stayed away from him all this weekend. But since he's returned home, he's done nothing to make amends for his transgressions. I then told him the engagement was off, and he accepted it. He avoids me around the house, and he doesn't try to connect with me at all. I guess the worst part about this is that Wednesday nights are supposed to be date nights. Yesterday, he told me he was going out with his boy and asked if I wanted to go, and I feel like he doesn't even care how much he hurt me, and he doesn't even want to fight for the relationship. I know I'm coming to this one-sided, but I'm wondering if there's any salvaging of this relationship. If you were in his shoes, what steps would you take to show that you were serious about the fact that you hurt your fiance? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Oh man, this really is sketchy because I don't blame blame you for not wanting to be around your fiance. And I think it's so ironic that he's like, oh, I don't remember anything, but I'm really sorry as well. But it's like, wait a second, you clearly remember something if you're apologizing. Like, what's going on right now? Just own up to it and try to make amends. Saying you're sorry in some kind of loose apology is not gonna cut it. So truly, I'm so sorry that this happened to you because you do not deserve this. Your fiance is completely out of line for treating you this way, and I think you have every right to be reconsidering this relationship as a whole. Am I the jerk for not refunding the bachelorette party group after $3 per person came back from a massage that got canceled? Because right now my friends are being super weird and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I took on the daunting task of organizing a bachelorette party for my best friend. Knowing she preferred a classy celebration over the typical bar scene, I meticulously planned a sophisticated yacht dinner cruise. I made sure to invite everyone the bride had asked for. I coordinated the yacht director to arrange meals, a private suite, drinks, a message for the bride, and hotel accommodations. I shared all the details and costs with the group, and everyone agreed and promptly sent me their portions. However, just a week later, a friend of the bride whom I had never met before messaged me. She couldn't attend because she got a new puppy and wanted a refund. And it's like, seriously, a new puppy? I couldn't think of a crappier reason not to show up for one of your closest friends. By that time, all payments were finalized, and refunding her would either mean covering her share myself or asking the group to contribute more money. After explaining that to her, she shot back sarcastically, suggesting, well, how about you just keep the money and make sure the bride has a good time? We eventually agreed to use her meal credit towards an extra bottle of alcohol for the group. As the event approached, I added personal touches like disposable cameras and decorations, and effectively spending additional money from my own pocket without asking the group for additional payments. The bride invited a few of us to stay with her in the hotel room we had collectively paid for. Initially, 4 of us planned to stay, but 2 friends backed out last minute to sleep at home with their boyfriends instead, leaving just the bride and me. Some group members later insinuated that they had paid for a hotel room for just the bride and me, which wasn't the original plan. On the day of the event, we enjoyed the yacht cruise and it was nice. The following morning, we had a massage scheduled, but the bride was incredibly sick and really just wanted to sleep. I canceled with the therapist who kindly waived the cancellation fee, and as a courtesy, I sent her a portion of the cost of the service. The remaining amount from the massage offset the extra expenses that I had previously covered out of my own pocket. I broke almost exactly even, with maybe a $3 refund for each after doing the math. But I didn't even bother with it, as I figured $3 was nothing. Well, about a week later, another one of the bride's friends questioned me why she hadn't received a refund for the canceled massage. I explained the situation, detailing the cancellation fee and the additional costs that I had personally covered, which all balanced out. She then accused me of using group funds for my own benefit and questioned the overall expenses, despite having previously agreed to them. I then clarified that the hotel room was intended for multiple people, but others had chosen not to stay. I then sarcastically offered to refund her $3 from the extra that I had acquired, but she refused. Planning group events is already frustrating enough without having to defend myself over every single dollar. I never asked anyone for extra money, and every detail of the original cost was spelled out for everyone. I broke almost exactly even after the massage was canceled, considering the extra out-of-pocket expenses I paid for. So am I the jerk for not providing full $3 refunds and using the remaining funds to cover my expenses? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. These people suck. Seriously, it seems like they're trying to nickel and dime you, while also finding every opportunity to show how ungrateful they are about this entire situation. Like seriously, this would be so frustrating if I was in your shoes. Here you are going out of your way to schedule all this crap for these people, and they're literally being so unappreciative of all the things you've done for them. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your friends are being weird, and I don't blame you for being frustrated with their actions. Am I the jerk for telling my friend to go to a food bank, as she's going through one of the hardest times financially she's ever gone through in her life? Because right now she's very pissed off at me for suggesting that, and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a friend who we will call Sally for the sake of the story, who has been going through some tough times. Sally split from her boyfriend last year when she caught him cheating. They had been together for over 2 decades, and he was very wealthy. Sally was a homemaker while they were together, and when they split, she was left with literally nothing. Ever since the split, she has been relying on the kindness of friends to get by. She has mostly been staying with one friend in particular, but lots of friends have been pitching in to help her meet her needs. Currently, she is attempting to support herself by trying to find work as a freelance artist, which she refers to as hustling, but most of the money that she makes immediately goes back into art supplies. I live in a different state from her currently, and I'm barely scraping by myself with a child to care for, so I have not been able to help her financially. Instead, I just try to be a sympathetic ear for her to vent to, and I've let her know know that I don't mind her venting to me. It is also important to know that when she was with her ex, they would often help their friends make ends meet financially, and she has helped me and my family more than once. Yesterday, we were talking on the phone, and she mentioned that she couldn't afford any food. She said that for the past few days, she's been barely eating anything, and she doesn't want to ask the friend she is staying with for food because she feels that friend is already doing too much. I then mentioned that she should try looking into some kind of local food banks in her area, and she became extremely offended. She said to me, "You know, you would think with all the people I've helped over the years that I wouldn't have to turn to that. It is embarrassing." I then told her that I wish I could help her myself, but I've only got $100 until the next payday, and I have to put my child first. I offered to help her by doing some Googling for her just for her options, but she insisted that taking food from a charity was embarrassing and unacceptable. But I reminded her that everyone goes through difficult times, and it's not embarrassing to ask for help. I then asked her if she had looked down on her friends who had needed help over the years, and she said that she didn't, but that she just wasn't used to being the person in need. She then ended the call saying she needed to get back to work, and I really got the feeling that I offended her. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. If Sally really is having a hard time and things are not working out for her, then going to a food bank is absolutely okay. It's the people that go there knowing that they don't need help, but take food anyways that truly are the problem. And we've covered a few people who do that, and those people are the scum of the earth. But Sally in this story doesn't sound like that kind of person. She seems like someone who's clearly just having a rough time and she could use the help. So no, you're not the jerk for suggesting that, because that is a legitimate way for her to get help. And if she really is offended by that, then that is something that she is going to have to figure out. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. And also, please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're going to love what they're making over there. It's a great channel and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.